Welcome to the Real Talk Podcast, episode numero dos. I had a good conversation with my buddy Ace. Just catching up on a lot of things in life, going over about how he met. I think it's fairly relatable. Sometimes you don't even remember how or why you became friends with somebody, and Ace and I spent a good amount of time trying to figure that out. But also just talking about work and ministry and married life and different things. So it's a good conversation. So hope you guys enjoy. There you go. All right, that's all we need.
Oh, we're rolling now. Cooking with gas.
Dude, as you can see, my audio stuff is just freaking. It's frustrating to figure out. I'll tell you that much.
Yeah.
But yeah. The more I've gotten into it, the more I'm like, I need to spend more time actually like investing in like how to do it. But yeah. So, but this is it, man.
Swagging out.
Welcome to episode 2 of Real Talk. So
Hey!
Real Talk with Gabe and my guest today. Introduce yourself, brother.
My name is Aaron, aka Ace.
Ace of Cakes.
Yeah, Ace is my initials. It's a long nickname that I had since I was in middle school, and so Gabe and I, he started working as the junior high pastor at the church I grew up in, and the name just stuck because that's what everyone was calling me.
There you go. So, okay, so what we're gonna, we could just go through a lot, man. Because for one, we just have a lot to catch up on in general. But
That's true.
But two, I think let's do a refresher course of our lives. How about that? Because I feel like there's there's a lot of that we've been through. Also, anybody that's listening to this hears the rustling. It's the beanbag chair I'm sitting on, so I might actually have to change that in the future.
A less sound noise. Yeah.
I don't know. It might. Well,
sounds like you're wearing a windbreaker.
yeah, it's true. Yeah, it's a really annoying rustling sound. So
it's a windbreaker chair right there,
dude. Anyways, all right. So let's start a little bit with just how we met. Obviously, we met in California and stuff like that. But let's kind of go into a little bit how we actually became friends, because that's a little bit more of an in-depth thing that I kind of don't really think about that often.
Neither do I.
Because we've been friends
natural.
Yeah, I know.
Do you remember the first time that we hung out?
I don't remember the first time you hung out.
Did we go to In-N-Out together?
I honestly don't remember, dude. What's your first memory of us having an interaction more than just hey,
I want to say it was when you had first started, and I had just met you, and I'm like, okay, this guy's pretty chill. That's cool. That's what's up. He's just getting to know people, so I'm pretty sure we went to In-N-Out.
Okay.
We were
a young adults group.
No, definitely not.
Yeah.
Maybe that was it. Maybe we were talking about that. Nah.
No, because we started that a little while. It was probably 5 or 6 months in before we started that.
Yeah, you're right about that. I'm terrible at timetables, bro. My memory to the small details like that is so bad.
Yeah. So the first,
I live in the moment.
No, dude, the first time I remember us having a lengthy conversation that was memorable, and I can look back on to be honest with you, I also it's gonna sound really bad. I don't remember the first time I met you and said, "Oh hey, this is Ace," or "This is Aaron." I don't remember that.
I don't remember that either.
I don't remember that with your brother. I don't remember that with your parents. I don't remember that with almost hardly
we were around, so
yeah,
all the time we were around.
Yeah. So, but anyways, the first memorable conversation I had with you, and it was fairly early on, was I don't know if you remember this, but there was a conversation I was having with you where I kind of was saying I was having feelings for do you remember Brooke? You remember that really tall girl, maybe? That was not an inch.
Yes.
She played for the worship team every now and then. She was in EMT.
She played piano or keyboard.
Yeah, keys, and she had a crazy good voice.
Yes.
Yeah.
I remember that.
Yeah, and I just remember talking, and then as I was talking to you about it, I was like, this is really stupid. I don't know. And then you were like, yeah, dude, I don't know why you're you're freaking out. This is kind of stupid and not. I was like, yeah. It was one of those things. I was it was as I was talking, because I remember I was locking up the church because it was my turn to do it, and so hey, quiet, it's okay. My dog is growling for anybody who might be wondering what that...
Man, that was so long ago.
That was so long. Yeah,
oh my goodness.
Because Rachel and I had, like, just started dating before, like, I got there. So that's kind of like...
wild.
Yeah. So, and that's why I was kind of like, dude, like...
What's happening here?
Yeah, I was like, what the heck? Like, why am I, like, feeling this way? And then it was like, Gabe, like, this is really stupid. Like, I don't know what you're, like, talking about. Like, and I don't think you said that, but I kind of said that to you, and then you were like...
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And that was, like, the first, like, memorable conversation actually, like, where we had, and I was like... Yeah, like, and I kind of trusted you enough at that point, so we had obviously had more interactions prior to that.
Yeah.
But just, I don't think I ever... I don't know. Prior to that, I don't really remember having anything that was, like... I guess that meaningful, and then it was like, yeah, like, you know, I trust Ace, and then we started talking, and then it was like, yeah, that's really stupid. Okay, let's move on.
Yeah, I also remember that I don't know if it was the same conversation or a similar time, but it was like probably November, and Carly and I, we had just met. For all the listeners out there, Carly is my wife.
Woo, Carly! Dude, we'll have to get her. Dude, if I get Carly
Hashtag
on
real talk,
bro. Real talk with Carly, dude. We have to like, you know what would be great is if we could have her and Sammy, and then have a bottle of wine between the two of them.
Oh, that'd be cool.
That would be intense.
That would be hilarious.
Okay, anyway, so Carly, your wife, now wife,
now wife, not at the time.
Mm-hmm.
I also remember. When I like it was probably after a college group, I think on a Thursday night, and I was like, dude, so there's this girl that I've been seeing.
Dude, yes! No, yes, I definitely remember that conversation. Yes.
And then I was like, she's probably gonna come to church like this Sunday or whatever, like that. And I was like, it's pretty cool. I like her a lot.
Yeah, so. Dude, I totally remember that, and I was like, bro, and I'm like, yes, because I think you had mentioned it to me like kind of 1-on-1 as we were kind of like about to leave the church and go to Pete's, and then I think I kind of freaked out and was like, oh, and everybody was like, what? And I was like, dude, and I think I like, and then that's when I told the group, and then they was like, bro, we gotta freak her out, and then they're like, I can't remember.
She was definitely freaked out. I'll say that much. Her first two interactions coming to the church were Debbie Price.
Oh God.
And Teresita.
Oh no!
And usually Teresita is so chill.
Yeah. But
she was like in more of like mom mode at this point.
So
yeah. She's like, who are you?
Dude, I remember Teresita. I miss her a lot, man. Dude, that's crazy.
Also, I had not briefed her on the fact that people called me Ace, which is my initials.
I do remember that, yes.
And so then, like, Stefan comes up to her, and he's like, oh, are you with Ace? And she's like, who? And she was, like, so confused. I felt really bad after, but it's a fun little memory.
It's awesome, dude. I feel like, that's hilarious. Because then, for one, she also learns a little bit more about you, too. Like, even in that, like, one moment in the interaction, you're like, oh, okay, cool. Like, you know, there's like he's also called Ace, you know?
Yep.
That's awesome, dude. Yeah, I remember I was like, I wanted to be such a tool and be like so obnoxious. Okay, but the thing is, like, that's like,
I feel like that's just natural mode.
No, you
don't have to try to do that one.
No, but the thing is, like, there's like in my mind, like everything I'm like is being exerted out of me is essentially like it is a reduced version of what I want it to be, even as extreme as it might seem.
That's reduced?
No, dude, no, literally, like, because like my thought is like, oh, bro, like I'm so freaking excited. I'm like, bro, I could just like punch a wall, but then I'm like, woo, like, just like my like instinct to just like go like, ah! And so it's like whenever I think about like whenever she was gonna be at the church, I really wanted to just be even weirder and be like even make her more comfortable. But then it was like, hey, you're Carly, right? And it was like, yeah. And so I was like, okay, that's already weird enough. The game, just keep it there. Like, so
isn't that a weird thing that people do when meeting like the new
person,
love interest?
Yeah, love interest. Yeah, more specifically, yeah.
It's kind of funny.
Well, I feel like I don't know. Because I think whenever you share that with somebody else, and it's like been like they're excited for like your friends, like our college group, whatever, our young adults group, like. You care about each other enough to be that invested, and then like you assume that like it's like they're, at least for me, like I can take that person into my life as well. I'm like, oh man, like I'm like you're with Ace, but it's like now like no, you're here, like that's it, like you're with us now. So it's like, I guess in my mind,
One
like,
of us.
yeah, that's kind of, I guess, how I view it a lot of times, is thinking about, you know, it's not necessarily that, like, I want to be weird with them, but it's like, to me, it's like, we're already connected now, you know? I don't know. That's just kind of how I view things. Like, I don't know if I necessarily have that intentional perspective, but I guess that's just how I feel about the situation going into it. Because, like, I don't necessarily have a barrier in my mind between another person. It's like, oh, cool, like, they're all good. Unless, like, you were to say, like, oh, I met this girl named Carly, and she's going to come to church on Sunday. I'm like, yeah. I'm like, but, like, she's kind of not... Like, if you, like, put, like, a little thing out there prior to that, then it'd be like, yeah, exactly.
Maybe I won't
Exactly. Because that's when I'd be like, oh, man, maybe I should be cautious to this person.
Like, kind of a Christian, but not.
Yeah, or even she was like, hey, like, I'm into Ace, and, like, I'll go to your church, but, like, I really love Satan. And it's like, it's just like, oh, jeez.
That's like, a whole nother separate talk. I think I would have needed to have.
Yeah, that would have been you talking to me, and then you'd have been like, "Hey, this is kind of stupid." I'm like, "Yeah, Ace." This is like, oh man. Yeah. Okay. So, yeah, that's like, but okay. So let's also talk a little bit about, like, I guess, the church in California. Just because, like, there's a long history that obviously you grew up in that church, but yeah. So it was Rolling Hills in Danville, California. So
yep.
That's it.
Still kicking. My parents still at the church.
Are they?
Yeah.
Okay. Dude, there's a whole, that's a whole mess of conversation there, too.
There is, yeah. We don't necessarily need to go down that path. I guess we could if we really wanted to.
Okay, but, so back in the day, so I got hired as the middle school youth pastor there, and basically just take over that specific role. But, do you know why they hired a separate middle school guy? Like, whenever, like, it's not a huge...
It wasn't a massive youth group.
No.
It's not like we had, like, 100 kids or anything like that.
Yeah, like, Brandon had, like, the high school was, like, 20 or 30 kids.
Yeah. Right?
And then there was, like, when I got there, it was, like, 2 or 3 kids from middle school.
Yeah.
So I was low. Like, I don't know. I guess, obviously, I was paid part-time and I was provided housing, so, like, it balances out a little bit. But I'm still, like... I don't know. In my perspective as somebody who's, like, in ministry now, I'm not always, like... I mean, if it's a big enough group, like, heck yeah. But I feel like Brandon, for as long as he had... Oh, yeah. I guess we're kind of naming names. I don't think he's ever going to listen to this, so it's fine.
Probably not.
Probably not. But if he does, Brandon, no shade, I guess. I feel like being as experienced as he was, I think he probably could have done middle school as well.
Yeah. I can speak to this a little bit. I guess traditionally in the church, there was 2 roles.
Okay.
Ever since I was in junior high, there was 2 separate people that were doing it. So I think that probably just is
cultural
carrying,
part of it.
Carrying on the culture of the church. Because, when I was just starting 6th grade... It was like Andrew Poe was the guy for junior high, and he was awesome. But then there was also another guy for high school. I want to say his name was James McKinney.
Okay.
But I didn't really know him. He was like, he was just like, he was just there. He was cool. I remember, all that stuff. And so there's always like 2 separate guys, and then it was like Andrew Martin for a while.
Okay, yeah, heard that
was
name.
a high school, and then it was like Adam Rowe, and then Ryan McEnany. There's multiple different people. There's always two roles though. Yeah, which was interesting.
Huh. Yeah, and that's so for me. Like growing up, there was always obviously I grew up in like most of my youth group experience was in like a mega church. So it's like from 4th grade on, that was basically my experience. But they always just had like even if it was like one campus, like it was always like high school and mid school, like even if it's one youth pastor, he would still handle it for separate services. Now, granted, it wasn't necessarily as in depth in like discipleship and like pouring and like investing in like going to kids' houses and like spending time with the families and stuff like that, and like really getting that time to invest in the whole family as a whole. You know, as a youth pastor, like you know, I that's what a huge part of what I love doing at Rolling Hills is like going over and hanging out at like the Hawker's house and, you know, meeting with Anton, meeting with Neil, or, you know, going over to the Wilsons and hanging out with, like, Cole and his brothers, and then going over to the Hansons, and at the time hanging out with with Caleb, and then later on Torin, and then hanging out with...
There's a whole nother conversation right there, too.
What do you mean?
about Caleb.
Oh, I know, dude. I mean,
Wild.
dude. Yeah, I know. Okay, well, we'll get into that too. But yeah, so my experience was always just one youth pastor. So when I got there, I was like, cool, like, you guys can afford to have like a separate guy just for mid school. I was like, that's awesome. I was like, and so that was just kind of like, I don't know, it was the way, and funny enough, I've already told you this, but like Poe was the guy, like Andrew Poe was the guy who kind of was the one who recommended me for that, and he told me is like, it's like you're like the guy, because you are the guy for that ministry, but you're like a part-time guy, so even if you're the guy running everything and like you're the one calling the shots, it's also kind of like, well, you're just starting out, so we're not gonna like really rake you over the coals for it. And so it was like,
it's low pressure.
Yeah, exactly. And he said it was like being the guy without all of the responsibility of being the guy. I was like, oh, that's cool, man. He goes, yeah, it's like a really sweet deal, man. He's like, so, and that was whenever I was telling him about it, and he was kind of like coaching me up a little bit of like what to expect when I get there and stuff like that. But even then, like, he was fairly far removed from the church at that point too. Yeah. So he like told me some things, but it wasn't fully accurate, just because you can't know boots on the ground.
Right. Yeah, I mean that's pretty good though.
Yeah. No, it was.
And Rolling Hills is one slow to change, I would say, on some things.
Yeah. But yeah, no. And then when I got there, obviously. Met the kids, met Jay Haney, was one of the first people that
He's a great person to, like,
dude,
one of the first people to meet.
It was so intimidating because, you know, like, Justin Hanson's, like, so relaxed. Like, he's, like, such a fun guy. But, like, when he was there, like, it was, like, Caleb and Cole and John. And I was teaching a lesson for, like, those 3 kids and Jay Haney. And Jay Haney just sat there in the back of the room and he was just, like this, you know. And I was running everything. He didn't give me any pointers. He didn't tell me the lesson was good. He didn't tell me. Like, literally, he was just like, hey, I'm just going to sit in and listen, you know. And I was like, that's awesome, you know, because he was the elder over the youth. Yeah. So, I mean, that's obviously his responsibility. He's there. And so I was, like, super nervous and intimidated because I was like, dude, like, what the heck does this guy think? Like, who is this guy? I was like, this guy, he's not only my elder, but one of his kids is here. So I was like... I don't know, man. So I was like super freaked out when I got started. But then like after like a first few weeks and just kind of getting the ball rolling and just feeling out things for a while, then obviously like met you and met all the other people there and really got plugged in more so with families, and it just kind of started rolling from there. But yeah, and then you were how long? Yeah, because you were volunteering with the high school, right? But how long had you been doing that at that point?
I want to say it was since I was almost freshly graduated, man. Because like Ryan McEnany was our high school guy.
Yeah.
When I graduated, and like we were pretty close. Like he was like my mentor at the time.
Yeah.
And so then after I graduated, me and Caleb Bonifay, who's now really heavily involved with CPC. I don't know his title. I just know he's one of the people. I think he's youth pastor at CPC.
Oh, okay.
Right now. And so me and him, like, we would like meet with Ryan and help him out with sermon ideas or whatever, or just like go through a book or just like talk about life. Yeah, and it was cool.
Yeah.
And then after that, I was just like helping out with games for a while.
Okay.
And then eventually, it like got into helping with small groups and stuff too.
Mm-hmm. So you were there volunteering from.
Pretty much when I was 18,
and then all the way through. I mean, were you there? Were you there when Brandon left too, or no?
I was there. Oh, was I there? I think it was like as soon as I was leaving, Brandon was also on the way out.
Gotcha. Yeah. There you go. Yeah, man, and he was there for
a few years.
Yeah, he was there. I think a year or two longer than me. Like when I had gotten there, he'd already been there for a year or two, I think, or maybe at least a year, if not longer. And then, obviously, like I got there and was there for a few years. Then he was there for like 3 or 4 years afterwards, and then now he's out in Orange County, down in California. So, yeah, that's wild, man.
It is wild,
dude. Yeah, I would say, and actually, I mean, we can go look in the other room after this, but that going away party that I have, like from all like everybody that signed it. Like that, I will tell you that's like I still think about Rolling Hills quite a bit, man. Because I mean, obviously, it was my first gig, but even so, it was something that was so transformative for me being there, man. Like meeting all you guys and like it definitely showed me for the first time what like a church family was.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So.
Good scratch.
Yeah, she always gets that like scratching right there underneath her, right around her like collar.
Yeah.
Okay.
He's okay.
There you go. But yeah, and it was the first time I ever kind of understood like what it meant to have a church family before, and like
yeah,
big part of that was like our young adults group that we had too, and just yeah, that was I don't know, that was something that like blossomed into something really really cool that I just really didn't think would be that impactful, but like I don't know, it was something that was really I don't know. I mean, it meant a lot to me having that every week. Like even as like
oh yeah, me too.
Yeah, it was
100%.
Yeah. So you grew but did you like grow up in the church from the time you were like a little like a baby or
pretty much, man? So well, not since I was a baby.
Okay.
Long story short, we were living in Fort Worth. That's where I was born. So we were living around Fort Worth. That's my dad was working downtown Fort Worth. And then when I was 5, our family moved over to California. And my brother's 2 years younger than me. All of my siblings are 2 years apart. And so my sister was the only one in our family that was born in California. So like
really,
yeah,
wow, that's funny.
Yeah.
So she's the Cali baby.
She's the Cali baby. So we moved, and then we were first moved. We were like living in an apartment in Danville, and so Rolling Hills was right there. It's like
you guys were living in an apartment?
Yeah, we were living in an apartment for not very long. Like while we were trying to find a house.
Huh.
And so we were living. It was like maybe it was less. It was like half a year, maybe 6 months. Or something like that.
Yeah.
Like I barely remember it.
Yeah.
But yeah, Rolling Hills was right there. I remember. So I was like 5 or 6 going to Rolling Hills like kids classes and stuff like that. So yeah, I remember.
Did you grow up doing Awana there too?
Oh yeah,
dude,
Awana,
OG Awana, man.
Timothy Award winner.
Woo!
Shout out
Woo!
to my Awana.
That's awesome,
my
bro.
approved workmen that are not ashamed.
There you go, dude. So legit, I had never heard of Awana before I got to Rolling Hills, ever.
It's a national thing. My parents helped out when they were in Texas.
No, and that's the thing. Like
my parents intentionally went to Rolling Hills because they knew they had Awana.
That's wild. And so the thing is, like, I did not. It's over there, dude. Go get it. It's out in the hallway. Go. I love you. Go get it. Go. All right, I'm gonna get my dog out of here because she's just. I love you. But,
sorry, Akira.
It's okay. All right. No, like I because I had learned that I thought it was more of like a local, like the church just made this curriculum and they just had this thing, and I was like, that's awesome. Like, this is really cool. And then, like, while I was working with it, like, Jason Senna was telling me, he's like,
Jason Senna.
he, like, just told me, he was like, yeah, this is like a national thing, dude. Like, they do this all over the country. I was like, seriously? He goes, yeah. And I was like, dude, I've never heard of this. He goes, no, it's a really big thing. He's like, you know, before we moved here, we'd had Awana before this, and then I think your dad, too, was saying the same thing. Like, and then he told me about how he did it in Texas, and I was like, what? I was like, they have this in Texas? Like,
wait, they study the Bible in Texas?
Oh, man. No, I was just, like, so blown away by it, dude. Everything about it was just so foreign to me. Like, that's why, like, going to Rolling Hills was, like, such a growing experience, because, like, it changed everything that I knew about, like, church life, which is just the wildest thing, which is good, you know. It was obviously a great thing, but, yeah, so you grew up and you started going to the church because of Awana. That's freaking crazy.
That was one of the things, yeah.
One of the things, yeah.
One of the things.
So, and then that means that Dave was also there whenever you were a baby too, then, right?
No, his family came in, well, probably when I was in the 6th grade.
Okay.
6th grade was when Dave came in. It was Roger Martin.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah,
was the pastor of the church for a long time.
I met him once, actually. He visited one time.
And again, this is when I was a kid, so my memory is really fuzzy. But I remember
I'm holding you to this, bro. This is it. This is like everything.
Kirk Poth was doing a lot of the like pastoring and preaching and stuff on Sundays. And yeah,
wow,
it's pretty cool.
So, do you remember what the church looked like? Or like the design differences that like got changed?
It was the lighting.
The
Oh
lighting.
man, bro. So we used to use the in our sanctuary for Rolling Hills, they have these huge gas, really bright lights.
I remember those. Yeah,
that you
yeah,
can use, and that was what it was like on a Sunday morning every single Sunday. And I think it was until Dave that they decided to not use those.
Yeah.
And then use like the surrounding lights around, so it was a little bit of a darker vibe.
Yeah, yeah.
But not like it wasn't super dark in there, but
yeah.
Yeah.
No,
So that was a huge thing.
I remember the gas lights. We'd every now and then have them for something, just because we needed extra light or something in there.
Yeah, for a youth group or an event or whatever.
Yeah, an event. Yeah, that's usually what it was. And I just remember they were a hassle because you had to wait forever for them to turn on. And I was like, dude, this sucks. I was like, plus, like, them contrasted with, like, the normal lighting we had in there. I was like...
This is not the greatest.
No!
I was
like...
bright fluorescent colored light compared to like the softer,
like the mellow vibe. Yeah. I feel like my life is basically just me trying to have that mellow vibe and all the lighting that I have. Like this room is like kind of like it's like natural light, but it's like I would like to have like some candles or something going right now, or like I don't know.
That'd be cool.
That's why this thing, the thing that you thought was a bong, my lantern. I don't know. Actually, how would you? I don't know.
Is that an oil lantern?
Yeah, it's an oil. Yeah, it's an oil thing.
Dude, that's sick.
It's just kerosene. That's all it is. So I will say, kerosene smells like very strong and is not pleasant to breathe in. So when you have it, this thing will light up like my whole living room. Like if it's pitch black, it will light up the whole room. It is like super bright.
That's cool.
And honestly, I have not put any more oil in this since I got it when I was in Farmington in like New Mexico, so years ago. Nice. And I only use it every now and then too, but even then, like it's just a really good, like reliable lamp. But the thing is, that smell is god awful. It is rough, and so I actually tried to put lavender oil in it. It's like so kerosene, burning kerosene and lavender does not go well at all. It just
I was gonna say mixing random things with kerosene. I don't know.
It's rough, dude. It is so bad. So anytime I use it, like I like it every now and then to like set the mood, like have that like moody lighting. But I'm like. I can't breathe. It looks nice in here, but I'm gonna die.
But I cannot breathe.
Yeah, man. Okay, so Dave came in when you were around
6th grade, because that's when I met Sam, who was like my best friend at the church growing up through high school, which was Dave's son.
Yeah. So
youngest son.
Man, that's okay. So I'm trying to remember the whole family. Yeah, no, because
it's Sam and then his older brother Ryan, who's like 2.5 years.
I thought Ryan was younger. That's why I was like,
no.
Is the youngest? I was like, is it youngest Ryan?
And then it was Sheely.
Yeah.
Was the second oldest, and then Abby was the oldest.
Yes. Oh yeah, Sam's the baby.
Yeah, Sam's
That's
the baby.
so weird to me, dude. I forget about all the kids that they have, man. That's kind of wild. Like, just that family's so big.
And bro, he was a punk. He can tell you this now. If you asked him, like, hey, so what were you like in the 6th grade? He was like, dude, I was basically just a jerk to everyone. He had Heelys, bro. He had like the Heelys going on.
Yeah.
And like they're like thick shoes.
Yeah.
Like super thick shoes. Mm-hmm. And he would like kick people in the shins just cuz.
Jeez. Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Imagine 12-year-old little Sam, right?
Dude.
Being a menace.
I love it. Freaking Sam. Hey, shout out to Sam.
Shout out to Sam.
I don't know if you're ever going to listen to this, buddy, but we love you.
So. We love you, dog.
Yeah. Dude, I actually...
But you were a punk in the 6th grade.
Okay, but what were you like in the 6th grade, though? Like, honestly.
I was quiet. I feel like I was really self-conscious as a kid.
Okay.
For whatever reason.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was pretty quiet. I liked sports. Okay. Kept to myself.
Mm-hmm. So, like, did you, like...
Pretty shy.
But, like, what kind of... did you... I know, obviously... Oh, okay.
I played basketball.
Okay. That was your main thing when you were younger?
Yeah.
Okay.
I played basketball since I was in the 3rd grade. And then I played baseball, too, but it wasn't my favorite. I just kind of did it.
You kind of just did it?
Yeah.
But then you got into football in high school, right?
Yeah, that's when I started.
There you go.
Good times.
Big dogs right there.
Big dogs. And you played like a little bit before high school, right? You like played growing up a little bit.
So I played 6 years. So I started when I was in 7th grade. Like the summer going into my 7th grade years when I kind of started getting into it. And then, so believe it or not, the first team sport I ever played was soccer for a month.
Yeah, I forget that everyone plays soccer for like
Dude,
at least a year or two.
Dude, I only played it for a month, and I did it, and they trained me to be the goalie, and I was like, kind of decent at it, but like my first time ever playing soccer, ever trying it out. And then, like, they gave me a jersey, but, like, they had only had one last game, and I didn't even play, because it was, like, I just didn't know what I was doing. So then the coach was like, hey, like, we'll honor, like, your thing until next year if, like, you want to do it. And then my mom asked me, like, do you want to do this? I was like, no. And then, like, that's because at the time, like, my buddies, we were playing football before school in middle school. Like, there was a big open field, and they're literally, like, it went from, like, elementary into middle school. Like, I had two massive fields on my elementary school and on my middle school. Yeah. My middle school field is actually smaller than my elementary school field because like it was just massive. But we would always play like so in elementary school. It'd be like at lunch we'd have a football, but it would be like 80 kids playing football, and
dude, those are so fun.
and so obviously, I mean, at the time we just called it smear the queer. That's all it would do. And so we just had the one kid just get destroyed.
One kid is just getting.
They're like crushed on the ground and they're like crying and they're like, I'm okay.
I'm pretty sure they had to outlaw this game in my middle school because too many people were getting hurt.
Yeah, no, that's exactly what happened. And so they gave us a soccer ball instead. And then we picked up the soccer ball and played it.
We were basically playing rugby before we knew what rugby even was.
Dude, it was crazy. And I remember, like, there was this one guy. So funny enough, I've known two guys named Big Mike in my life. And so the older one was in high school. The younger one was when I was in elementary school. And so there was Big Mike and Little Mike because Michael was like one of my best friends, and he lived down the street from me. And so did Daniel, and then my other third Nathan lived down another place. But Big Mike and his sister lived across the street from Michael. So it was Big Mike and I think it's Roseanne or something like that or whatever. Roseanne. And then Michael lived right here, and so I would just go one block down and play with him. But one day, like Big Mike had like, the soccer ball, and so he's running with it, and so but he's a huge kid.
To take him down.
No, everyone's trying to. They're grabbing, and he's just like trucking through everybody like this freaking beast. And then amazingly, my friend Michael, who's just a savage. Like, we also, like, did skateboarding and stuff together, and so we kind of fell and just, like, we did some really wild, like, dangerous stuff together just because we could. And so that was the friends I had in elementary school. But, so Big Mike has this ball, and he's running, and I see Michael just, as hard as he can, into one of his legs, kicks Big Mike's leg shin on shin. Just BAM! And I'm watching this, and I see Michael do this, and it's like, ooh! And Big Mike just comes tumbling down, and I was like, oh my gosh. I was like, dude, Michael's a savage, bro. It's like, what's happening right now? I was like, I can't believe he just did that.
Did he break his leg?
Dude, honestly, I don't think he did, but it was just one of those crazy things.
Shin on shin.
Yeah.
Ouch.
No, and he was much bigger than him, too. Like, Big Mike was huge, and like, me and Michael were just average-sized 5th graders. Like, so it was kind of fun, but yeah. Then we graduated from that onto actual football later on in middle school, whenever one of my buddies, Olin Stump, believe it or not, doubt he's ever going to listen to this, never talk to him. I think I follow him on Instagram, but he's not a big social media guy either. But I became a Broncos fan because of my cousin, and then he was a Cowboys fan. And so...
Wow, real original.
I know!
Real original Cowboys fan.
Dude, literally the biggest sports brand in the entire world. So. Shout out to Nathan, the other Cowboys fan that we hate and love. So.
Sucker! They lost to my Niners this year.
Yeah, Choke City. But no, so me and Olin kind of became friends just through football. And that's also where I met my buddy Ben. Was in middle school playing football on the field and stuff. And Ben played football, Olin played football, Ben's little friend Ryan, and I say little because he literally was like tiny compared to all of us. And so Ryan also played football with Ben and Olin on the same team. And so I was kind of friends with all these guys, and they're like, while I was playing, Olin was like, dude, you really should play football. And he always told me that. Like, he's always like, Gabe, you should just really play football.
The mindset.
Well, I think it's just because I was just aggressive. Like, I didn't know what I was doing, but I was like, I'm just going to run freaking hard, dude. Like, and I'm going to hit somebody. Yeah, it was just one of those things, like, I'm just a savage on the field. That's all I wanted to do. And because I didn't know anything else. I didn't know any skills.
Just want to knock somebody.
And so I ended up telling my mom for a long time, Mom, I want to play football. Mom, I want to play football. And she'd be like, Gabe, do you really want to play football? I said, yeah, I really want to play football. So ended up getting on a team, and because I was older than everybody, in my 7th grade year, I was playing with 8th graders, but I was already kind of a smaller kid, anyways. So I was like, okay, but then like I was literally one of like two like Mexican little kids. And actually, no, there was a bunch of the kids were Mexican on my team, but I was like one of two small Mexican kids that like we kind of looked alike. And so the other guy's name was Zavala, and then my name was Perez, my last name. And so my coaches sometimes would confuse us and call me Zavala and him Perez, or vice versa. And so, but we were just two guys on the team. We actually became pretty good friends with my other buddy Aaron, who also I went to high school with. Also was really good friends with Ben and everybody else, because eventually we went to high school together, and we're like, ah. But yeah, so I started playing when I was in 7th grade, and that's kind of when all that started, and played all the way through senior year. So.
Yeah, high school football is special, bro.
Dude,
it is so fun.
It's unique, man, because it's like there's even in like that environment, like it's rare to have somebody. Like, so it goes from like this massive pool to like a third of the size. Maybe, and then it's like, okay, that gets narrowed down to even smaller, obviously, with professional. Yeah. And so it's like just that tiny, like this massive ocean of people that are a part of it. But even in that massive ocean, I knew probably like 40 or 50 guys that tried out for football at different times and they didn't make it. And when I was in high school,
that's nuts.
Like, yeah, I mean, there's like plenty of guys like, because I mean, we always had like we had to cut a lot of people just eventually, but like. When it got to like varsity, it was basically when like, you didn't have to cut anybody. You were trying to move guys up. Right. But like when you're a freshman and like even on JV, like there's guys that just like they hear about it and like, oh, I'm gonna play football.
I can come out and play.
Yeah, I can go do it. And it's really funny because there's so many guys that I remember they came to like 3 practices or like 4 practices, like, and then like, but then the thing is like later on they talk about like, oh, I remember Coach Barker, or like, oh, I remember like, and you're like,
bro, you're on the team for 3 days.
I know exactly. That's what I'm like, dude. And so the thing is, you kind of bite your tongue because you're like, dude, I've been doing this for 4 years with this same coach, and it's like, yeah, it's you weren't there. But
oh,
yeah.
Dude. Yeah, but, our team was. We didn't have to cut anyone on our freshman team because it just turned out like the people who wanted to play kept playing, and then I'd say in our area, like where my high school was, there was not very many kids who grew up playing football. There was like 4 kids on my team in my class that had played football before.
Really?
Like growing up,
wow.
Only like 4 kids.
That's crazy.
And the rest of our team's brand new to it. And so like
That's wild,
if you're strapping on the pads and the helmet is like super tight on your head and you've never experienced it before, it's like that's uncomfortable.
Oh, it sucks.
Yeah,
even as somebody who experienced it like, before, it sucks.
Yeah, if I was gonna put a helmet on right now, it would that'd probably give me a headache.
Oh yeah, you'd have a headache for sure. Yeah.
And so there's a lot of kids who just like they just quit, which. I guess it was fine. Yeah. We still had a team of like 40 guys freshman year, something like that.
Yeah, our freshman team, because even then, like, after we had like a big pool, it did get narrowed down, and then after that, it was just like, there were some guys that just dropped off even during the season or kind of later on, and so like by the end of the season, you had like a mostly full team. It didn't have a ton of like backups all the time, but. Our freshman teams had been known for being super bad, like not being like successful by any stretch of the imagination.
Yeah, I think we were bad.
So
as a freshman,
I think we maybe won a few games as freshmen, but then like our JV was like atrocious. And so when I got on JV like my sophomore year, it was a big deal that we won our last game of the season. And we were like 1-6, 1-6, because the year before us they had gone 0-7, and before that I think they won like maybe 2 games the year before that. So it was like this is the first game we've actually won in like probably two years or so. Like it's been a while. And I was like, gosh, dang. And so we like came in, and I was pissed that we had such a crappy season. I was like, dude, this is terrible. Like the ones of us that
no
like
one likes to lose.
No, well, so the thing is, the ones that actually cared like were pissed. Then there was guys on the bus who were like, oh, just like joking around like on the bus after we just got our ass kicked, and I'm like, why are you like? And I remember my friend Malik, and he is a freaking stud, like one of those guys that like we were kind of like all in the same general like physical capabilities when we were freshmen, and then like you get that sophomore year, and he's like 10 steps above everybody else all of a sudden in 1 year. Like, he just physically was a specimen. Dude, literally just gigantic. Like, this man is so strong. And even, like, he's a police officer now. And
I have had multiple memories like that.
Yeah.
So I didn't get to play JV, which I really wanted to, because
you're just that much of a stud. Got moved
that
up
much
to
of
varsity?
a stud. Yeah,
Dude.
I did get moved up, but it sucked because in the first 5 games of the season, I didn't play at all. Zero playing time, not even one snap.
Yeah.
And so then I'm like, and all my friends, because the JV team is small.
Yeah.
They maybe had 25 to 30 guys.
Yeah.
JV team was always the smallest team because they just brought up all the
good
best
guys.
players to play on varsity, which was, anyway.
Yeah.
And all my friends were having a good time playing on JV and stuff like that. And so the end of that sophomore season, we lost in the playoffs. We played against San Rafael, and we went to their place to play them.
Yeah.
And they have a grass field that's horrible condition. And it's pouring down rain.
Oh, dude.
Pouring down rain. And so it was a mud bowl the entire game. It was like no one made an extra point, so everyone was going for 2. It was impossible to kick.
Yeah.
And after we lost the game, and after that game, like, one of the juniors on the team, who's he's like decent. He's like above average player on the team. He's like really fast, though.
Yeah.
He like slides through the mud after we lost, and he's like, "Woo!" And then like one of the seniors is just like, he just gets so mad. He's just like, "What are you doing? This is my season, man!
Dang.
Like, this is my season!"
Dang,
because that's his last game that he's ever gonna play.
Oh, dude,
and he's just like
heavy.
Screaming at him.
That
like,
is heavy,
half crying and stuff like that. He's like, "This is my season,
dude."
And then he just like shut up and then didn't say anything after that.
Oh man, that's heartbreaking, dude. Like, that hurts me right now. I don't even know this guy. I don't even know his name, but I know that pain of like, dude, that's it. This is it.
That's it.
That's your last game you're ever gonna play, man.
Yeah.
Oh, dude. Well, the thing is, it's different because, and I think it's more special in that sense because, like, you can still play a pickup basketball game with guys, and still, like, you can go to a park and have a basketball and have like a pickup game.
You can play flag football and stuff like that. It's just not the same.
It's just not the same. And the thing is, I've literally talked to Rach before. My wife, by the way, everybody who's on the podcast listening. You know, kind of forget it's actually there a little bit, but I just remember like talking to her about like I would love to have like an adult like football league, like with like pads. I would love to do that. I was like, at the time I was in New Mexico and like we just got married, and I was like in like doing ministry and trying to like slow down a little bit and not, because I was working like 55 hours a week or so, just like just burning the midnight tequila, just trying to. I actually could not drink most of the time. So that was like just a phrase of anything, but I was just working a lot and just trying to do a lot of things for ministry relating to kids and really just trying to pour what I had into them. But it was also like I have to have time for my wife, and I also have to have time to just like stay sane and decompress and be okay.
Yeah.
And so I thought about, I was like, I would love to play football. Like I would love to play football. Didn't really work out, obviously, but like I've always wanted to like just get that feeling again. But I'm like,
you should do rugby.
Dude,
rugby is way more common than a tackle football league.
That's fair. Yeah, that is fair. But
my boss Josh, he plays rugby.
Really?
Yeah,
dude.
He's huge into rugby.
Dude, does he have a like?
He's very like, he is definitely very serious about his fitness. He's
really?
Like 40, 41.
Okay,
but he's like super. Yeah,
in shape.
He's very in shape.
He's
got like a 6-pack, bro. Like
he's stacked, bro.
He's stacked,
dude. Stacked with that 60, son.
He does paddleboarding and he plays rugby, and he's a beast,
dude. I actually recently. By the way, do you want some water?
I'm good.
Okay, cool.
I'm feeling good.
I'm gonna grab this water bottle behind you.
Oh, okay, for sure.
Over here, next to you, I guess, not behind you. No, dude, I've actually recently gotten a lot more into the gym, like a lot more. So I'm probably going like at least like 4 to 5 times a week.
Shoot!
But it's like I just
Get them
go
gains.
But I just go in about like a little over an hour or so, maybe like an hour and a half. But that's like with a solid like 10 to 15 minutes at least of stretching and warming up first, though.
Right.
Like, because typically before, like I really wouldn't do that very much. But now like I'm kind of trying to be smarter about it. But like it's also helped me a lot with my sleep. Like that's something like I just used to. I mean,
I'm sure working out part of it.
Yeah, the working out part has
sure.
helped me 100%. A ton with sleep because before, and like, and I think you guys have all known it, or like I've talked about it, but like I usually just like stay up to like 2 or 3. Sometimes like accidentally just stay up till 4 in the morning, and I'm like, crap, it's 4 in the morning. I have to get to bed sometime. It's like, and I'm kind of tired, but I don't want to go to sleep. Like I'm just like, I don't feel like I'm like physically, but I'm just like yeah, man, I guess I'm gonna go to bed now. And like I lay down, and
that was like 19-year-old me.
Dude, it's
18 to 19-year-old me was doing that exact thing.
Dude, that's like how I've been since I was like 17 though. So like up until like very recently, like I mean like within the past like month. It's
crazy.
Been like, because I haven't gone to the gym consistently before that, and so I was only going like maybe once or twice a week, and it was like, and it, it was like cool, and that was good enough. I was like, I'm staying in shape. I have some solid leg days, solid chest days, whatever. But then like, I wasn't really focusing on it very much, and then I was like, it was, I don't know. When I shared a little bit about with you guys about just all the stuff I was kind of going through, and just kind of figuring stuff out like mentally and emotionally and spiritually, and just didn't really know kind of what God was really put on my heart, and I just had a lot of angst, like a lot of just like and I had like multiple, like I already don't sleep that much, but it was like multiple like sleepless nights of just like completely awake. Like I was laying in bed and just my thoughts were just going, and like it was just anxious, and had a lot of stuff that I was just like not even like stressing, but it was just like something like I just couldn't shake off, and it was just like this uneasiness that was just like dwelling over me, man. And
yeah, I had one of those nights last night, but I feel better today.
Well, it's good, man. Yeah. No, but like ever since I've, well, for one, part of that, like part of the reason I got back to the gym was like I need to like do something, because I can't sit here and deal with this like just sitting here. Like I have to do something, and so it kind of was like this like almost like angry, I need to like exert myself and like hurt my body for working out. Like I just gotta like I gotta make my body suffer right now, or else I'm gonna lose my mind, because like I was just in such a rough place, and that's why I started just going as much as I did. But then in doing so, I discovered that I was like really really loving it, and it was something that like I noticed almost immediately, that I was like at like 12 or 12:30, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm tired. And normally I would easily be up to 1:30 or 2, and then I'd be like, I probably need to go to bed.
Yeah, I need to at least lay there.
Yeah,
I gotta try. I at least have to try. The old college try.
But the thing is though, like funny enough, even if I wasn't tired, when I would go and lay down, it would take maybe 20 minutes to go to bed though, normally. So even if like I wasn't wanting to go to bed, my body was pretty much ready there, but like just mentally I just wasn't like wanting, I don't know, for whatever I just didn't want to. And so then I would just be up and up and up, and then like I'd end up passing out on the couch, and then I'd wake up at like 5 a.m. and I'd like stumble into the bedroom, and Rachel's like I'm like, hey, and I look at the time, it's like 5, and sometimes like pretty often she would like wake up and look at her phone to see when I came in, because she's like, dude, like what the heck you been doing? Like, and I'd be like, I'm sorry, I fell asleep on the couch, or like, hey, I was playing Dark Souls and I just got really into it. Or like, and sometimes that happens even if I'm like really tired, because I'm just like so into it. But but going to the gym though has really really helped me in a lot of ways, and it's something that like I just didn't realize how much I missed. And it's something I've been way more conscious of, like health wise, and like what I'm eating, and like I drink like a lot more water now. I was actually talking to my friend last night, and I was telling her, I was like, dude, I hit like normally your water filters, because we have like Brita water. Is it Brita? Pure Brita. I don't know. One of those like plastic water filters. I don't know, whatever.
Yeah. Sounds like a Brita.
Yeah.
That's the most
common one.
Brand.
Let's just say I have a Brita, sponsored by Brita.
Brita, if you're out there listening, please sponsor this podcast.
Hey, I will tell you that I will sponsor you, because I use your filters all the time, so it's fine. No, but I normally they're like on a timer, like, hey, this is supposed to last you so many gallons, and that's averaged over like 3 months.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, okay, that's fine. But like, when the filter's kind of going, because like the water filter's really slow. Like it's like so clogged up with everything else that it just like it takes like a solid 5 minutes to get just one filter through, and I'm like, dude, like this is like I need to change these filters. And so I started changing them out. Like,
do you feel like you need to use that here in Oregon with the decent water
with the water that I have in this apartment complex? Yes. And I will tell you specifically, I have 100% legitimate reason. Whenever Rachel and I first moved in here, or when we were checking out this place, right?
Yeah.
we went to the bathroom, and because for me, I always want to check and see how the water, how much it flows, and kind of what it's like, and to see if there's leaks anywhere, like before you move in, whatever. So I turn on the water in this bathroom sink because it's white, so you can kind of see it a little bit better. But turn the light on, turn on the water, and I see it, and it's like brownish orange.
Ooh,
and
the
I was
water?
like, yeah.
Is it still like that?
No, so when it keeps flowing, it doesn't get like that. But when it's stagnant in the pipe, which is why I think it's just iron, like it's just rusty pipes. Yeah, exactly. So unless they change all the pipes in this entire place, which not going to happen anytime soon, I'm basically going to have a filter for any water I drink out of here. So that's why when I offer you guys water, I bring out that little pitcher because it's like
I definitely drink the same. I do tap.
Nah,
I'm a tap man.
Well, I don't. So the thing is, I know this is an older complex too, and it's not as well taken care of as it used to be. And I've been made aware of that from our other tenants that are here. They've told me like, "Oh, it used to be so much better." I'm like, "What the heck?" But yeah, so in realizing that I need to filter my water and realizing that I had like been drinking a lot more and it wasn't doing that, I've been changing them out like a lot more often. So just because I drink so much more water now.
Hey, good for you, man. Yeah. Gotta get that water down.
The agua, that H2O, son.
Yeah. I do not like working out, but I do like playing basketball.
And
our church is a full court gym.
Is it wood? Like,
yes. No, it's a basketball gym. It's a full court basketball court.
Wow.
In our church.
So often do you use that to play games?
There's organized nights. Are you talking about for youth group? Or just in general?
No, just in general, like for you, like when you're playing
Thursday and Sunday nights, they play at 7. There's a good group of guys.
Yeah.
And it's cool because not a lot of them actually go to the church.
Yeah.
They're just guys that hear about it.
Yeah.
And like, one of the guys on our elder board is the one who runs it. And so, before every time we play, he's like, "Hey, we're Harvest Christian Church. We're not like 24. We're not gonna get into fights, right? We are trying to exemplify Jesus and the things we do. So, we're not about that here.
There you go.
We're gonna have fun, play hard, but don't
get too crazy.
Don't take it too crazy, yeah.
Dude.
It's fun, and I'm just now getting back into it.
Yeah,
I feel like have been lazy.
Okay, so I hate to revisit this because it was a traumatic thing.
My knee injury?
Yes. Yeah, because so are you okay if we talk about that?
Yeah, I'm
okay.
Because
I know it's it's a big injury, and I just know for some people, I know when they have an injury, they're like, I don't really want to talk about that.
I feel like I was mentally over it pretty quick.
Yeah, and I feel like you were, but
it's the long suffering of the fact that I still have nerve damage from that.
Okay, so describe to me. I remember you telling me, but I think I have an idea, but also I've listened to Joe Rogan podcast, and there's another guy who hurt himself really bad, his knee and his arm playing basketball, trying to dunk. So then I'm like,
gosh, I was not trying to do that.
I don't want to mix up what I know of that story and what I know of your story. So okay, so just remind me what happened and what got injured, I guess.
Yeah, I was playing basketball, and it's not like it was uncommon for me to play basketball at the gym. Mm-hmm. They usually play time at Monday mornings, Wednesday morning, Friday morning, Saturday morning.
Dang.
And so I would go at least twice a week, if not more, to go play.
Yeah.
And so it was common for me to do this, to go play basketball. So I wasn't super out of shape. I was decent basketball shape. I'm not going to play college or anything like that.
Yeah.
But I was in decent shape.
Yeah.
And so there's a Saturday, me and my brother had gone and we're playing, and then I was tired. We had played for 2.5 hours already. Damn. And I took my shoes off. I was like, I'm done. Yeah. I was like, I'm done. The game was over.
Yeah,
you played at 21, and then you just restarted after that.
Yeah.
The game was over. I took my shoes off, and then they needed one person to play 5-on-5.
Yeah.
And they're begging me to come play. And I was like, fine, I'll come play.
Yeah.
And so then I'm running full speed during the game in transition, and I don't have the ball. I'm running full speed down the middle of the court because somebody had dribbled down the right side.
Gotcha. And
so then somebody was guarding them, so then they had stopped, and I was running full speed and catching the ball. Yeah, looking for the pass right down the middle. And as soon as I catch the ball, I turn, and there's someone right there, so I stop. But all my momentum goes to my left leg. And major hyperextend. The fact that my toe like hits my chest, like in a
Oh my gosh!
my left
no way
hits my chest, and I just fall down, and I just lay there, and I'm like, I know there's something massively wrong with my knee.
Oh, Ace, I did not. Oh my gosh. Oh,
it was really bad.
Jesus. Oh my gosh.
It was like as hyperextended as you could possibly get.
Oh my gosh, dude! I did not realize that.
At least it wasn't twisted to the side though. It was just straight back.
Oh my gosh,
and
dude.
So, dude, I still remember it. It was terrible.
Dude, I want to cry right now.
And it didn't stay there. It snapped right back into normal position, and I don't think anybody really saw what happened. So then everyone's like, "What happened?"
Dude.
And then I took an ambulance to the hospital.
Oh my gosh.
My knee was like purple swollen. It was like a ball.
And
then it turns out that I had torn my lateral hamstring, which is like your outside hamstring, my LCL, my ACL, and then ruptured my PCL all in one go.
So what's the difference between a rupture and a tear?
It was tear is like...
Is it like a clean break?
It can be a clean break.
Okay.
Rupture was like there was damage done to it, but it wasn't enough to do reconstruction on it.
Okay.
Like, it didn't tear. So the tears, there's also multiple ways you can tear your ligaments. You can tear it from the middle, which is honestly worse because to put it back together, they usually have to take a graft from a different ligament. Like your patellar tendon is usually what they would use. Yeah. Honestly. So your patellar tendon. But mine, all of them, but I guess is a fortunate thing because it makes the surgery easier. Okay. They tore from the bone, like the attachment from the bone, and so the ligaments literally just tore from where they attached to the bones.
Oh my gosh, dude, bro. So did you? Okay, so it happened. Your foot touches your freaking shoulder, and so like, did you automatically feel like a wave of pain? Did it just?
Oh, it hurts so bad.
Oh, my
it was like the worst pain I've ever felt.
Well, I mean, yeah, it's hard to top that, dude.
Yeah, it's hard to top that.
You're like, well, it's one time I got shot in the jaw, but that was close. Like,
what was even almost worse was the pain after surgery.
Really?
It was so bad, dude.
Really?
It was so bad because it was like my knee hadn't even healed from initially getting hurt, and then I'm getting cut up, and then they're like going in there, they're cleaning up scar tissue, and then like reattaching stuff where it should be,
pulling and yanking on stuff. Yeah,
it was gosh. I was like an insomniac for at least 2 to 3 months.
Oh my god!
Like I'd sleep like 2 hours a night, just because it was so painful. Like, I slept in my living room in a chair, pretty much, was, like, the spot that I would just stay in for a while.
Honestly, I think Carly sent me a picture of whenever you were, like, chilling. Because I think,
and I would just play Xbox, bro. What else can you do?
Yeah, you're watch a movie,
disabled. You watch a show, and then when you literally can't sleep because you're in so much pain, you're like, I'll just play Xbox, whatever.
That's crazy, dude. Man. So, how long is it before you could, like, stand?
Oh, it was a long time before I could stand. Put weight on it?
Dude.
Because there's surgery, which was like 2 weeks after I got hurt. Mm-hmm. And then it was at least 6 months or longer before I could stand.
Dang. Oh my gosh.
Put weight on it. There's whole steps to the process.
Dude.
The first thing is to put weight on it. And then you start doing mobility, which is like... Because they have you locked in a brace.
Okay.
Straight-legged.
Yeah.
For at least 4 months.
Jeez.
Or longer. For me, it was longer because there was so much happening on it.
Yeah.
And so my leg was like locked in a straight thing for a long time. And I would take it off to shower and stuff like that. But for 23 hours and something minutes of the day, my leg was locked in a straight position. So then you have to like... get mobility back and bending because every time you bend anything it hurts after that.
Dude. Okay, so oh my gosh, dude, that's insane. This is like okay, I am not.
And this is like you all your. I feel like a lot of people's experience with like knee injuries and stuff is they hear professional athletes get hurt or people that are still like trying to actively pursue stuff, so they have like good rehab teams and all this
Yeah.
stuff. I'm just the average Joe Schmo who hurts his knee. I don't have the professional grade support that these guys do.
Yeah, you don't have a full-time round-the-clock doctors like working on
Right.
everything and taking care of your nutrition and like, hey, like we're gonna give you pain meds so you can sleep and recover better. I'm like, okay.
Yeah, I mean, I
thanks.
had pain meds.
Yeah, but I mean, like they probably get like injections and stuff like that.
Oh,
like,
I'm
in
sure,
the cells.
yeah.
Like, oh my gosh. So, did your leg, like your muscles, atrophy like pretty quick?
My
Like,
calf muscles for sure.
bro. Oh man.
Calf, yeah, no, I would say, yeah, for sure. Calf and quad muscles for sure.
Yeah.
My left leg was like a little. It was like skin and bone.
Was it like
It
that?
wasn't-
Was it that bad?
It was really skinny compared to my right.
Did you ever get a picture of it?
There probably is.
You're like, nah. Let's
I'm
not.
sure my mom does.
Dude, I just because I remember one of my sister's friends, he had gotten in like a pretty bad accident one time, and I don't remember like what happened, but like it was with his arm, and so he had like have his arm like basically just locked for a while, and he was in the hospital for a month. But like even just a month of not moving his arm, like his left arm looked a lot bigger because he was doing more with it.
Right.
But his right arm literally was like tiny,
Skinny,
like
yeah.
super tiny. And he also wasn't a big guy to start with, so it's not like he had like a ton of muscle to lose. But like he already didn't have big arms, and then what was left was just gone. And so he had like a tiny arm afterwards, and he was like, dude. It sucked. I was like, yeah, dude, I do not envy you, man.
Yup.
Dude, so 6 months to stand, all right, and then, because I remember, and tell me if I'm wrong, I vaguely feel like you were able to, you were still like heavily in recovery, but you were able to walk for like Nathan and Sammy's wedding, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So maybe it wasn't 6 months to stand. Maybe that was dramatic. It was at least 3 or 4.
Okay.
Because I got hurt in July.
Mm-hmm.
And the wedding was in September. Okay, maybe it was only 2 months to stand then.
There you go.
There you go.
There you go.
That was dramatic. 6 months to stand! No,
Well,
I think I had actually, the first time I'd ever even started walking was like 2 days before their wedding.
I remember you were super nervous. I remember you were super...
I was nervous that I was going to trip and fall.
And I remember
because
Carly
it was
was
like
a
we're
freaking-
walking on uneven ground.
I know, outdoors, dude.
Outdoors and like the grass, and it was like uneven ground to go out there, and I'm like wearing a suit and all this stuff, and like these shoes, the nice shoes.
Yeah, dude. I remember Carly was a freaking nervous wreck around you too. She literally was like Aaron. She was like, I just remember her being like, I remember she was like talking to me about it, how like worried she was, and I was like, "It's gonna be okay, Carly. We got this." And then she was like you could see like she's like the panic in her eyes, and she just was like so worried about you that you're gonna be okay. But I was like, "Oh, we'll be okay.
We're gonna be okay."
Yeah.
And then I made everyone cry,
dude. I cried.
I kind of wish it was recorded,
dude. Oh yeah.
I wonder if it wasn't. I don't think it was.
No, I remember. That was really cool, man. That was a really.
That was
awesome.
a really fun moment. I liked their wedding a lot.
Yeah. It was, that was before, no, because they got married, and then you got married, and then me and Rachel got married, right?
Yeah.
Dude. Yeah, man. Because I was going to,
In that like 2 to 3 year period, there's so many weddings.
Oh, yeah, because then.
So many weddings.
Oh, my God. I don't know, because then Jack got married after you guys,
1
right?
month after we got married.
Yeah.
Our wedding day was May 25th, 2019, and theirs was June 26th.
Dang, that's awesome.
This is like a month and a day.
Yeah, that's wild. And I remember I had just met Lauren. And I just met Jack, too. I met Jack the day before. Yeah. And I remember, like, when we were getting ready at the church in the youth room, I remember that, because, like, for one, yes, I remember there was somebody with the wrong pants.
That was
Jack. And then I remember I had a V.
Dude, if you ask him about this, it was like, he made Lauren, like, do all these errands for him while this was happening. She hates him for that. It's hilarious to hear her talk about it. Anyway.
No, I just remember, like, so he had the discolored pants, and I remember I had, like, an undershirt, but it was a V-neck undershirt. So,
who cares?
I didn't think it was a big deal, but I remember Sam, he looked at me, he's like, "What are you wearing?" And I was like, "An undershirt, man." He goes, "Dude, but you're wearing like a V. I can see where your shirt ends underneath your dress shirt. So you literally, like, it was all nice and white, and it looked all formal, and I had my tie, but underneath my tie was like this weird dark shade of a V." And I was like, "Crap, you're right, dude." I was
Do you just do no undershirt?
Well, no, I usually have a full under, but like I typically actually
No,
have.
but did you end up doing no undershirt
I
instead of
feel like I did. I don't know. I feel like I ended up getting really self conscious about it, and then Sam was like, "Dude, you cannot wear that." I was like, "No, I think I either borrowed one from somebody. I don't know. I can't remember how it was, but I remember it was a big deal because that's all I brought. I was like, I don't have any other clothes, dude. Like, I literally brought this dress clothes, and when I'm like my t-shirts that have like designs on them, and I think I actually thought about wearing an In-N-Out shirt because I was like, I could wear that, and I think I flipped it inside out, and you could still see it through the dress shirt. And I was like, dang it. So I was like, nah, there's no going back.
That's funny.
Yeah, there was. Oh man. Yeah, your guys' wedding was really fun, man.
It was good.
Yeah, it was a good time, man.
It was good. It was a very good day.
Yeah, man. I mean, I enjoyed it.
I enjoyed it as well.
Dude, I remember at Sammy Nathan's wedding, I saw Will and Everett for the first time, and like, because I had just left Rolling Hills, like a few months before, and then they got married, and I remember seeing Will and Everett, and I bawled like a baby seeing them because it was like
because you would babysit them.
Yeah, dude,
almost every day.
Yeah, basically it was I think like 4 times a week, so 4 times a week for like 3 hours. And so I saw them all the time. Like, I built really strong relationships with them. And like, even like over the summer for my birthday, I remember, and I still have the video saved on my phone, but it was a video from Mar, and she sent it. It was Everett, and so she goes, and she's like, "Hey, tell Gabe happy birthday." He goes, and like his face, he's all crawling. He goes, "Hey Gabe, happy birthday. I love you." And I was like, when she said that to me, I literally cried. Like,
these are really cute kids, by
dude,
the way.
I don't want to meet all their new ones.
Everyone says, oh, that kid's so cute, but these kids are really cute.
No, those are like the definition of like the cutest kids ever. Like, it's like you think about like a picture perfect, like amazing little family, like a quiet husband, like a really like soft spoken but very sweet mom, and like crazy kids that are tearing everything apart, but also are like the most
to the
lovable.
Public, Ryan is quiet, but he's not that quiet.
Well, yeah, outside looking in. Let's just do that.
Bro.
But like they are, it's just so great to be able to like see them and like, man. And even when I used to like, whenever Mara would come home or Ryan would come home, like it was like it honestly warms my heart so much. Like, I'm trying not to cry right now because it literally is just like, I just remember seeing how much they like loved their parents and just like seeing how much like that's whenever you get to see like the rare moment that you don't get to always see between a parent and a child, that like a parent understands that moment, and like you as a child don't understand that love that your parent has for them because you're like, well, I was a baby then, like, and I was a toddler then, so I did love you like that, but I don't even remember those moments. Like, they were precious to you because you were there. But then it was like one of those, I actually got to see that moment multiple times over and over again, and it was like, oh my gosh, like, oh, the love is so palpable, and I was just like, oh Lord,
so precious.
I was like, I just don't like, man, I don't know, I feel like I love these kids so much. I feel like I love people so much, and I'm like, if I have kids, my heart might hurt. Like my heart might just stop working because it's just like, oh man, it's just one of those things. I wish I could understand that kind of like palpable, like, you know.
Yeah.
Oh man.
That has me thinking of, that passage in Matthew 7 where Jesus is talking about like, so, you know, like fathers on earth, right? They love their kids and they want to even just give them the things they want. Yeah. And he's like, how much more does your heavenly Father want to give you? Yeah. And like that's nuts, bro. Yeah, man. That's nuts. Like you think about, like God, he like knows our greatest need is to be in relationship with him, but then at the same time, like he has such great love for us that he just like he cares about even the things that we just want, even the things that we think can be insignificant. He still, desires to have us have that joy. Yeah. Well, so I'm doing a lesson tomorrow night. Normally I've been going through the armor of God with the kids, but tomorrow I'm going through love because it's Valentine's Day yesterday. Love. But so I'm just kind of going through like the different words that are used in the Bible for love, and just kind of talking about those different things and things like that. Everyone should go through a study on that at some point in their life. And I'm trying to do obviously a quick lesson because I have a younger group. It's mixed high school, mid school, but most of them are middle school. And
And so, but I'm also trying to make it in depth enough for like the high schoolers, the way they can like walk away and be like, dude, that was really good. And that's kind of like genuinely I gear it towards an older ish audience, and I'm like, okay, like the middle schoolers, they can step up.
They can hang.
Yeah,
they can hang with
exactly.
stuff.
And it's not
and
like
it's good to teach that too. It's like you shouldn't need to be dumbed down to all the time.
No, but so I'm teaching about that, and it was just cool today.
Is calling me.
Ooh, the missus.
She is. I'll call her back.
There you go. Do you do you have any time things you gotta get home for? Or?
I do not. She's probably wondering where I am. I don't.
just tell her you're out in the streets
I'm
causing havoc. I'm like, hey, don't worry. I'm in a potty with your boy, right? No, but I was just going through that today. Which I was gonna say that's what I was gonna be working on my computer. Was like I wanted to start looking up a little bit more of like where like those specific words are used, and then more specifically when it talks about the command like love the Lord your God, and like Jesus also talks about like what's the most important commandment, like love God and love others, and so like looking at the words that he uses specifically in that sentence or in those passages.
Did you already look at that?
No, I haven't looked. I was going to, then my computer was off. Yeah. So yeah, that's tomorrow's.
I'm so curious now.
I'm curious too, dude. I'll tell you what, you should do it. Go home, look it up, and then I'm gonna look it up tomorrow, and then I'll be like, bro, and then you'll be like, bro.
Dang.
But yeah, because it's like you think about like the meaning behind that. It's like when he says like,
you think it's agape?
I would assume so. But at the same time, it's like what's the meaning behind that passage? So because that was like the whole point of the message that I'm going through with the kids is understanding that like love is something that people everywhere need. Like we have an absolute need in our life for love, and so but it's like we also confuse love because it's so complicated. And I'm also talking about like even in the Bible it's complicated. That's why there's all these different ways to describe this thing that we all just call love. Like, oh, I love that, or I love you, or I love my dog, or I love my parents, or I love my wife, and I love God.
I love tacos.
Yeah, I love tacos. Like, heck yeah. The thing is, and that's actually one of the things I talk about was like, I can say like, and I define it as like what love is a deep passion for something that honors God. Like, and because that's genuine love. It's love that love that honors God is like godly love. And so like you can have a deep passion for something but not honor God with it. Like, and you can understand and realize like what the feeling and the passion to love something, but it's not it's more selfishness and actual like sinful desire at that point if it's not God honoring. It can even if it's something that you enjoy, if you obsess about that thing and make that thing like your idol or something that's like really just a priority over everything else in your life, and you're not taking advantage or taking care of the things that you actually need to do or that are already in your life that are going to be beneficial for you, then like that's not honoring God, because you're neglecting the responsibilities and the people and the things that he's placed in your life to actually build up and pour into and to actually be a light into the world. But if you're focused on this thing, that you might love quote unquote this thing, but that's not God honoring, man. So that's not love. Like that's a deep passion for something, but that's not true love that's actually honoring God. And so like, understanding like you can love your friend and that's God honoring. Like you can love your parents and that's God honoring. You can love cooking and you can honor God with your passion for cooking, with however you're using that passion. So it's like not to say that you can't have a deep passion for things, but it's are we using that in a way that is directed towards the Lord, including our relationships. Like when we love like your boyfriend, your girlfriend, your whoever, and talking with the kids and stuff like that, like are we utilizing that in a way that points us and others to the Lord? And very honestly, like it's a very complex thing, and I obviously think love is even deeper than that. I think there's like it's a very brief lesson. Like,
definitely,
it's like,
multifaceted.
Yeah, and I mean, you could literally do like months and months of studying just on different aspects of love and how it manifests itself and how God's love manifests itself. Like even like his grace that he gives us, his mercy, his faithfulness, the fact that he listens. Like those are ways that his love itself, it like manifests itself. Like he takes the time to like be quiet and listen to us, and it's like I should be listening to him, but he's like, I love you so much that I'm going to stop and listen. There's also other times where his love manifests itself in discipline. And love also manifests itself in justice. And love manifests itself also in grace, in the sense of like, I'm not even going to give you what you deserve. I'm going to give you something even better. It's like, because of the fact that I love you. But also, like, that doesn't take away it doesn't take away from the fact that he's still a God of justice, and his love is fully wrapped up in his justice and fully wrapped up in his grace. Yeah. Like, you can't separate those two, because, like, that's how complex love genuinely is. And so you're like, bro, like, that's huge. That's a massive thing.
We're talking about, God, the creator of the universe, who created the idea of love.
Well, right? He is love. Yeah.
He is love.
Yeah.
Right. He is the originator of this idea of love. Yeah. And, to understand that, we see it in Scripture. We see it from beginning to end, right? His love, his original plan for him to be, for us to be in relationship with him.
Yeah, unhindered.
Unhindered from ourselves. And it ends that way too. Yeah. And everything in between. So we see his character through it. Yeah. And it's crazy. But we try to kind of have to strip away our human biases. Yeah. To kind of get to the root of it a little bit.
Well, and the thing is, I think even understanding, like you said, like, he's the originator, like, he is love, and like, love only manifests itself because he is, the embodiment of it, and, like, so to understand an eternal being who is himself the definition of love and is the ultimate manifestation, really, of love itself, like, you can't really fully understand that if he's eternal. Yeah. I'm a finite being, so that means I can't fully understand God. And if God himself is not only manifestation or like the origination of love, then I can't fully understand love. Like my finite temporary mind cannot fully understand that. And that's like,
no one can.
No, yeah.
We can get close, like we can draw really close to him. Yeah. We can exemplify his character. Mm-hmm. We can get into moments like Moses, where he's like telling God, "Hey, remember your character. Remember like your promise that you have for your people." Things like that too. So it's crazy.
Dude, so let me ask you. I was just like, well, I think I've talked about this a little bit maybe, but I was like, kind of that specifically that verse brings up the whole idea of like. Because I guess that when you look at the soteriology of like,
it's a big word. I don't know that one.
That's like kind of like salvific, or like how people are saved. This theology of how people are saved. So that would where like Calvinism and Arminianism, or like traditionalists, or like all those different camps of like understanding like how people are saved.
We're talking about Moses.
Yeah. So it relates to that because so that's what I was saying. Like all of those things, like those are different branches of branches underneath the theology behind how people are saved. And so when it comes to specifically that verse about Moses calling God to remember, and it's like, well, like
God, and then he changes his mind.
And so that's the thing. Scripture says that like God changes his mind and he relents. He doesn't actually punish the people because Moses asked him to, and Moses brought up the promises that God had. And the thing is, when you look at that passage, God he wouldn't be breaking his promise, because he says, I'll start over with you, which also is still an heir of Abraham. Yeah. Also is still one of those people. Yeah. And would still be the promised land that he's delivering them to. So God wouldn't be breaking any promises. But Moses is just calling the question really like, hey, can we can still do it with these people? Like I know like you can still honor your promise, and you will. Like God says, and he explains, I'll start over with you, which still fulfills everything in the promise. But and it says that God changed his mind in the passage, and that's a very powerful statement to put in there and to be written down, because of the fact that it's like from a Calvinist viewpoint of like everything's already been determined. And it's like, it would be like a 5-point Calvinist or whatever you want to call it, but like, and the root of it is like everything's predetermined. Like God's already going to save who he's going to save. He's already made the choices he's going to make. We're just playing out what's already been written, and you don't have to worry about anything because it's already going to happen no matter what. So in that branch of thinking, that branch of theology, whenever this would come up, it's kind of interesting to say, well, why would Scripture say that God changed his mind if he's already predetermined that it's going to happen? Yeah. So then I know that there's a justification within that branch of theology to say, well, he was really just testing Moses to see if he would do it, and it says that God changes his mind, but really he was already going to make that decision anyway. So it's a little bit of like,
those are, yeah, it's like that's the fun part about Scripture is like we're looking at this thing, this holy Scripture, this ancient Hebrew, and we're looking at it to try and determine, how can we draw closer to God through this? Mm-hmm. And I think there's moments like that with stuff that happens and we don't fully understand it. We don't fully understand it. And I feel like it doesn't really take away from the big message of the Scripture, but at the same time, like, it gives us room to talk about it.
Yeah.
To try to understand. And I've listened to I'm listening to the Bible Project podcast, and they're really good. Tim Mackey is like the guy who kind of goes into like all the study on this stuff, and it's really interesting. And he talks about this one. He's like when you look at kind of the story of Scripture, starting from Genesis, God's intention for us was like, hey, I want you to be in this process of like caring for the earth. I want you to rule over the earth. And so like Moses is like one of the first examples of someone who is like really, he's like sharing the character of God in some of these moments. And even like he kind of presents himself as like the person who is going to be the one who's going to sacrifice himself, because he's like, I'll sacrifice myself. I'll die in the place of the people. Don't destroy them.
Yeah.
And it's I just find that to be interesting.
Yeah, no, I think it's also plug my computer in. Oh, it's another charger, so hopefully it doesn't.
It just zaps everything. Gone.
No, typically it charges just fine. It's just like when you're trying to do like little actions with it, it'll actually alter things a little bit. So, like it'll like kind of when you're trying to go between screens or something, it'll be like.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So it's just kind of like the interface, not necessarily the functionality of what's happening. But yeah, no, I think that there's, I don't know, I just like that kind of, I think ultimately what matters when it comes to like soteriological or like, how people are saved theology, it really does matter. It's like God's the one who's responsible for saving people. Like, we don't, like, whether you believe that we're accepting a present or accepting the gift of salvation and like, that's how people are saved, or God's the one who's choosing people to save. Either way, God's the one saving. Like, we're not saving ourselves. It's by the work of Jesus on the cross, dying and resurrecting. Like, it has nothing to do with anybody here on earth, and you can't save yourself. And it's like, because if it was dependent on man, we would have been saving ourselves. I mean, it's been thousands of years, like, and we're still pretty much in the same sinful boat we've always been. Like, you look back at history, and like we're slightly less violent. We're just as selfish, and that's about where we're at. So it's like, I mean, if it was up to us, I feel like we'd have a lot better position in life if it really was up to us and our works. But it's not. We haven't gone anywhere. We haven't elevated ourselves above any of our ancestors outside of slightly less violence and slight equality for people. But even again, all that's relative, in different places in the world, a lot of those atrocities are still happening just behind closed doors. And it is kind of interesting. You think about the reality of love and the understanding that, like, as Christians we're called to love and live out and be a light into the world. It doesn't really matter quite so often about like some of the, like, you talked about in scripture, like Paul's talking about, like, people argue about words and with the meaning of words, and it's like it's frivolous talk because you're just confusing people. Like, what matters is the gospel. And it's like, for us as Christians, like, we can get like, it's something I can be guilty of too pretty often, but it's like sometimes I like to like ask, like, hey, what's your like soteriological viewpoint? And it's like, because it's a divisive issue, and I just out of me, it's just curiosity. I just like to kind of talk about it. And I'm sure
you're asking people who, I feel like that's kind of like that's a next level, thinking. At least, I mean, hopefully, right? people aren't coming to Jesus, and then the first thing someone's discipling them on is, okay, here are the views where you can believe on one side, God destines everything, and these are important to know for your faith, right?
Yeah.
Like, I feel like that's like a seasoned believer thing.
Yeah,
and I feel like in the context of those conversations, I feel like that's kind of interesting, you know, because the whole idea of like group learning, that's also existed for a really long time. Yeah, it's like people, they never really studied the Bible alone. No, you know, they couldn't. Yeah, they didn't have access to it alone, so they would come together, they would talk about it. Yeah, and like bouncing off each other would like create this picture of who God was. And I feel like that's cool too.
Yeah, yeah. No, I think it's an imperative to really, I think, dig in the Scripture together a lot, and I think. I think in isolation is where you kind of get those crazy like theologies that just pop out of nowhere. And
like, unchecked.
Exactly. Yeah. There's no checks and balances. Like there's no experienced or seasoned believers to be like, hey, do we not remember that other part of Scripture that completely contradicts everything you're saying? Like, right. And so it's like, because we can easily get caught up in like one group or one thought process or whatever you want to call it, without realizing a wider scope. And it's like, I mean, that's why like the body of Christ exists. Like we're there to build each other up and keep each other supported, and you know, all that jazz. So
yeah, and that's why there's been some really smart people that have looked at the original manuscripts of Hebrew and Greek and said, you know, I think this is what this is trying to say. And if you're not going to that at all, you know, like, I guess you could learn Hebrew by yourself in theory. Yeah. Right? But like, you'd probably still come to some weird conclusions without any influence of another voice.
Yeah. Well, and even then, okay, so my thought process about this also is like, okay, someone can say, well, somebody else has studied Hebrew, and there's a lot of people that have gone through, they've looked at what Hebrew means, and you're like, okay, so I'm going to take this person's, I guess their point of view, and take their word for it. Yeah. I'm going to take their word for it, that these people have looked at it, and that we've arrived at a understanding of the words that is accurate enough after thousands of years of looking at it, and thousands of people like analyzing it, picking it over, trying to pick it apart, and trying to find the different ways that it could mean something. And it's like, okay, so after all that time, we've arrived at a place that's fairly accurate, you know. So like, but even if you were to try and escape that and learn it yourself, who are you learning what the words mean from? Like, if you just look at a piece of papyrus that has Hebrew written on it, you're not going to be like, oh, that means...
Oh, that's Ruah.
Exactly.
That's God's Spirit. I know that word.
Exactly. Like, that's what I'm saying. It's like, ultimately, you're going to have to rely on someone else who has a previous knowledge, even if it's a little bit more...
To write, like, a dictionary or a reference book or something.
Exactly. Yeah. There's going to be some kind of referential thing you're going to have to go to, which is eventually, that's why it's like there's a little like bits of knowledge you can kind of compare it to, and like they people have done that. They are the ones that like, I only got this much, and this guy's like, I got this much. Okay, let's put that together, and then like 10 other guys are like, well, we got like 5 other pieces. All 10 of us have 5 pieces, and it's like, okay, 20 million people later, it's like, hey, we have a lot of tiny little pieces now. We've actually been able to put this together. And it's like, but you as an individual, most people are not going to have the time or resources to put all those tiny little pieces together for themselves in one lifetime and then be able to actually come to a reasonable conclusion.
Yeah, you couldn't do that in a lifetime.
No, there's no way. Impossible. Literally, yeah. There's so much to study.
If you spent hours and hours and hours, and I think that would defeat the purpose, right? If we were gonna read the Bible, and the whole thing is like, we see God's character through it. We see His story from beginning to end. We see how He interacts with His people, how He loves, you know, all this stuff, right? We see it when we actually are going through His Word, and that, you know, it says that it cuts to bone and marrow. There's things in there that go past just the things on the surface, but they actually penetrate our hearts and make a difference. And if like you were just gonna like sum it up with like the perfect phrases for each of the meanings and stuff like that, I feel like you would lose that. Yeah. And I think that would kind of go away from the intention of it.
Yeah, dude. Well, that's, I don't know. You know, and that's kind of like for me my struggle in like thinking about the future for like ministry and stuff. I don't know, I might have shared this with you guys for our men's group. I don't know if I did, but like just thinking about like different roles in the future for me.
Yeah.
Like,
do you want to be the head pastor? Do you want to continue?
Yeah, and it's just like, and the thing is, part of that is going to involve more schooling and like good digging in that stuff. And part of it's like, I've already had some schooling. I've already like done a lot of theology, and like even then, I've already like a lot of outside of that already. I've already done a lot of independent like digging into like sermons and like discussing with pastors and going through stuff with elders, and also like discussing with people that are in like seminary and stuff like that, and like really like fleshing out some bigger ideas or really odd ideas that I've never even thought of. And I'm like, I don't know how I feel about that. I'm not gonna say no because I don't know, but like that doesn't sound like fully accurate, or it sounds way different than I've ever heard. So like, let's work through that, And so I've been able to kind of have a little bit more of an exposure, and I'm like, I feel like I have a seasoned like thing underneath my belt enough to be like, I can be a youth pastor. Obviously, I have some training and a lot of experience with that, but I'm like, I don't know if I really want to get into like getting a whole degree just to like justify that I can be a pastor now. You know what I mean? Because partially in my mind, I think about like in the earlier church, like they didn't have like proper schools. They just had the Bible and somebody who was in charge of reading it and sharing what it said. That was it. Yeah. And obviously they helped each other, and the people, like you said, like as a church, they would speak over each other with songs and praise and psalms, like being able to like read the Proverbs together and focusing on those things and remembering that we're all here for the Lord. Yeah. So there wasn't like this, hey, I'm the pastor, I have authority now, and this is what we're going to go through. And it's like, because now I'm educated and you're not. This what qualifies me now,
right?
And I don't think an education.
It's a very American thing.
It is.
I had a professor in my theology 2 class at Biola, who he put it like this. He was like, so even just the people who are graduating Biola, they graduate with their Bible minor. They've taken 10 Bible classes. Even those people, just those 10 Bible classes, have more training in the Bible than 90% of the pastors in the entire world.
That's crazy.
And you think about that, and like, that's nuts.
Yeah.
Like, you were talking about a worldwide church where God's mission, spreading this good news of Jesus, his forgiveness through the cross, redemption, all of this stuff, is spreading worldwide. And even like 90% of the people out there doing and pastoring and loving on their communities don't even have formal training. Yeah. It's a very American thing to like think
put that
about.
Qualification on.
Yeah, put the qualification.
Yeah.
We do have that standard, right? We do have that standard.
Yeah, and that's why, like, for me, I think about if I were to get into it, I wouldn't necessarily want that standard to be there, like, because I don't while I might still want to pursue more, just on my own, just to kind of have a somewhat deeper understanding, and but the thing is, like, a lot of things are already, like, especially theology books are already available. Like, they're pretty already out there. Like, and, just because I'm not necessarily, like, learning how to speak Hebrew shouldn't disqualify me for being a pastor of a church, Or just because I don't necessarily want to have to learn ancient Greek or ancient Hebrew, or, like, I reliably trust the experts that have studied that, and I can, when I'm looking at a passage and I want to study the Hebrew, I go to the reference things.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know why that's not okay. Like, I don't know why I can't be, like, somebody who's in a leader role, like a leadership role, studying the Bible actively and putting sermons together, but also providing direction for a church. But, like, without a degree, I can't do that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I'm sure there's churches out there, man. Or you could just start your own.
So those two things. I'm like, for one, I could go and find a church like that. I'm like, that's all fine and good. But then I also feel like I'm trying to do ministry by my own standards and my own qualifications, and say, no, I'm going to do this my way.
Right.
And I don't know how much of a selfish route that is, if that's my own pride and my own selfishness driving that, or if that's really just something the Lord's put on my heart. But the thing is, like, I also got into ministry without any qualifications at all.
Yeah.
Like, I started as a youth pastor just because I loved the Lord and I knew, like, the Bible enough to teach it to other people. That's it. Like, it wasn't, I had no formal, I was in culinary school. I dropped out of culinary school to go be a youth pastor in California. Now, granted, I was the middle school guy, and I was obviously still overseen a little bit, but, like, I ended up getting, formal training at Western Seminary for, ministry stuff. And then I also talked with Dave, like, all the time. Like, I was digging into scripture and I was like, what is it? Like, let's talk about this. I would just walk into his office and just like, and he was like...
Yeah, I love that. That's a cool... I mean, yeah, with all things being said, that that aspect of the relationship you have with him is very special. Because I think, looking at, different aspects of ministry, it's like, the church can have a very different dynamic. Like, I know my boss, he's like really, really busy all the time.
Yeah.
And he's doing so much for our church. And he's being very faithful while doing it.
Yeah.
And so, like, just like I couldn't... A lot of the times, I wouldn't be able to just go into his office and start asking him about stuff.
Yeah.
Just because he's busy doing stuff. He's, like, pastoring people, preparing for lessons and stuff like this. So, that's a cool...
I also will say
moment.
I also will say it's pretty much because I was ignorant to the fact that he was probably doing a lot of stuff, and I just didn't realize. And that again, so that's like kind of my.
But he humored you. He would a lot of the time. Right?
Well, no, yeah, most of the time he like almost every single time I walked in, he would just like stop and be like, "Hey, what's up?" And I was like, "Hey, man." And so the thing is, if his door is closed, you don't go in. But like his door is open, but like everybody was kind of scared to go in. And I think I just didn't know why everyone was scared because I didn't really know him that well yet. But I say it with all respect. Like obviously, like you know some of that history between he and I. But like at the time, I just had no reason to not go to him. Like I had every reason to be like, I don't really know that much, but I'm studying a lot of theology right now, and I'm just digging. And I literally was just hungry for the word and always reading and always digging in. But like when I found something that was interesting and I was connecting pieces of like theology and scripture just on my own, I was like, I've kind of arrived at this. But then I was like, I'm gonna bring this to Dave, and I just like I would just talk to him about it, and we'd literally flesh it out. And Dave, being how he is, he just challenges you on things, not to like be a jerk, but just to be like, I'm gonna push you to figure out this on your own. I'm gonna be the person who's like, do you really know this? Like, are you gonna act? Do you actually know this, or do you think you know this? And it was a little bit of tough love, but part of it was also like I loved that because it was like he would ask me hard questions, and I'd be like, no, well let's think, and I would just like kind of think about it and respond, and it was like, no, yeah, I think that's right because X, Y, and Z. Look at this in this passage, and he's like, oh, okay. And I was like, there you go, cool. And so it was something that was more just my own ignorance and my own innocence. That was just like, I think that's kind of where that blossomed out of. And it did stop eventually because I had been doing so much and I had kind of learned so much at that point. And then I got into the Western Seminary program with Omar and Sheely. So the three of us were going through that. That was kind of my biggest like learn. Now I wasn't sponging off of just the word and just Dave. Now it was like the word, a little bit of Dave, and then a lot of Western Seminary stuff.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where all that was, I think, more rooted in. But I guess because of that background of like, it was more just me loving the Lord and loving the Word. Then I was like, why can't I love the Lord and love the Word and also be a head pastor? Like, is that not allowed? Like, I don't know. And so I guess, and I know like, some people might be like, well, you don't want to fall into pitfalls. You might need to know a little bit more about how to run a church and stuff like that. And that's all fine and good. Like, I 100% understand those things. It's like leadership isn't always as easy to just walk into. But I also think schooling doesn't produce leadership either. You know, like just going to a school doesn't make you a leader.
Not automatic.
Mm. So,
but I do think that most of the people who spend the time and the money
yeah.
to go through programs like that are being intentional to do something. You know, like I feel like most of them, people aren't just like, you know what, I'm just going to get a seminary degree.
Yeah.
Like that's a very low percentage of people.
Yeah.
Like, I just want to do seminary degree just because.
Yeah.
Right? I'm going to get my doctorate.
Yeah.
And this is going to be my thesis.
Yeah.
About the Old Testament. Yeah. Just because. I feel like it's like a lot of these people, they either know they want to be teaching someone, right? In like the aspect of like a college professor or something, or they know they want to be part of the pastor of a church, right? And so I feel like
there's a very
unique.
It's a very direct and pretty much like you're going into that, you're not looking to like go be an engineer. So
and I will say this, my time at Biola was super awesome. I wasn't even a Bible major, and I still feel like I got so much from the teaching.
Yeah.
And stuff like that.
Well, I'm not necessarily against going and getting more teaching. That's not really where I'm at. I think it's more so just like
the fact that there is a requirement on.
Yeah, I guess like having like, I mean, because I think as an elder board, like you should be able to like bring theological questions to whoever you're interviewing, and if they can't give a reasonable theological answer and genuinely like understand the scripture enough to give you a response, even if it's not immediate, and say, you know what, hey, here's this question, like here's this list of questions, how would you answer it and with what scriptures, and like how would you back that up, like what's your viewpoint on this and why, and like understanding that if somebody knows the word enough but also can be passionate and diligent enough to, even if they don't have a direct answer right away, they can study the word enough to bring something back. And if you're like, we don't really agree with that theology, or like, hey, I don't know if we're okay with like this viewpoint on this, or you know, whatever it might be, then at that point it would be the elders still qualifying them to be the leader, you know, and then the church would also vote on that, and they can say, hey, these are the questions that we asked this interviewer, or this, you know, let's say, or this is who we asked Ace, you know, and this is what Ace said about X, Y, and Z, and this is the scriptures that he used. And so we as an elder board, like leaders of this church, we feel like this is somebody that we can back as our person, you know. And so as a church, who do you like, how do you guys feel? You know, I genuinely, and that's usually a smaller church thing, obviously. Like, that's kind of like, if your church is pretty massive, it's really hard to actually have that dialogue without it being kind of weird.
Right.
But at the same time, like, you can say, hey, after service, we are going to be, you know, telling you guys about our next pastor, you know. And so we just want, if you guys are curious about who that's going to be, you can stay after the service. We'll inform you guys about, like, the interview process that we went through with this person. And explain, and the elders can go up and talk a little bit about that person and why they feel it's the right one. And I feel like that is more of the checks and balances that should take place, more so than a degree. And I say that more avidly now because I've met people out here that are in seminary that have very, very slanted theology, that are getting like doctorates in all these different things. And I'm like, I think that view is a little bit
out there.
You know, borderline heretical at times. Like,
true.
And I say that genuinely. Like, and I don't mean that to be just like inflammatory at all, but because it's like to give you perspective. Like, there's someone that I have known out here that has kind of talked about just their viewpoint on either passages of the Bible or certain sections of the Bible, like Old and New Testament, that they're like, I don't really know if that's like 100% God's word, or 100% infallible, or is not contradictory. And they're like doctorate students, and like people that are still in seminary. And so it's like, where'd you learn that?
Is there a specific example that you're thinking
of? I mean, more so like, I know the Old Testament more specifically is something that I have heard said that is like, hey, like, I don't think that the Old Testament is like 100% God's word. Like, I think it's been influenced and changed quite a bit over the years, and there's things have been added into it that have changed my perspective on that. And I'm like, but then they also would say, but the New Testament is 100% God's word. Like, there's nothing like that's like 100% there. And so they avidly hold to one, but not 100% to the other. And I understand, like, there's parts of Scripture in the way that you look at how things are set up in the Old Testament, like, you know, sacrifice rituals and how they, you know, everything was like the Pharisees did, and how all the rules were set up to set the people apart. They are similar but different to a lot of what was going on culturally. So then you also look at, so then the people that I've, you know, discussed this with are like, they see the overlaps between the current culture and the Old Testament Hebrew, and like similarities in that, and they kind of blend them together and say, well, it's clear that they weren't like that as separate as we like to think that they were. And so then they like view it as there is an outside influence influencing those actual scriptures as well, including with the people.
I'd actually somewhat agree with that, to be honest, because
okay.
there is to say that the biblical authors were not influenced or trying to use other cultures as a way
to reach the people.
To then reach the people.
Yeah,
I think is interesting because I don't know a whole lot about this, and this takes like it's a lot of like historical study and stuff like this.
Yeah.
But from the bits that I've heard is like there's a lot of things in even just like the Genesis narrative that mirrors other like beginning narratives.
Yeah.
But then also is very different. You know?
Yeah.
And so like creation stories of different cultures kind of begin in a similar way, but at the same point, like the Genesis makes like a really specific point, like in the very first line of the Bible.
Yeah,
God
created
the heavens and the earth.
Yeah.
Right, and so like a lot of these other cultures, and like the way that it's written, and the way like the literary form of it can be seen as like mirroring some other things from other cultures, but I think that's also really intentional. And so like I think it is influenced by other cultures. I just think also it's saying something very opposite and like
No, and I would agree with that. I would say that I don't doubt that there's outside influences in that, but to say that because there's outside influences you would question the validity of it as in its entirety is a little bit where I'd be like, I don't know if I can say that. Like I'm okay and pretty much aware of the fact that the culture also influenced part of what was going on and what was being recorded and what was written.
Yeah.
But to say that like God would then allow something of His infallible word, because it talks about that verse in I can't remember if it's 1st or 2nd Timothy, but talking about like all scriptures God breathed and beneficial for teaching and rebuking. So that's referring to the Old Testament. That's not referring to the New Testament that we have it as what it is now.
Yeah.
So when it's referencing the Old Testament, then that would be like all scripture is God breathed, meaning the scriptures they were reading are what He is saying is specifically infallible. So then it's like, okay, how do you justify and say, well, the New Testament's 100% fine? I don't know about all the Old Testament though. And then so it's almost kind of like you're kind of sitting on a fence with that whenever there's like the scripture that you're pointing to specifically in the New Testament is affirming the Old Testament, but also a lot of the New Testament is referencing and like you see the things coming true, especially in the Gospels of like things that were talked about in the Old Testament that are all pointing towards Christ, the prophecies and everything, and they come true. And you see those things lining up, and so it's how do you kind of have one without the other? You know?
Yeah. I don't think there is one without the other.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
When you're looking at Scripture, I think so much of what these original authors were doing is really pointing to Jesus, but before anyone knew who it was.
Exactly.
Jesus, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
And I think that I kind of get the vein of not understanding some things and not understanding context, and that's when I think that if like that's a huge stumbling block for you, then I think studying and getting into that stuff is like really beneficial.
Yeah,
because there are some people. There's actually a lot of people that have really good perspectives really trying to understand how the original authors were thinking in this like a context of ancient Hebrew and stuff like that. So I feel like in terms of that, but I also do believe that the process by which you come to those conclusions is also good. And I feel like every single one of us has had doubts of like what the scripture says. Yeah. Or like what its meaning is.
Yeah. Challenging it or being challenged by it.
Yeah, or being challenged by it, right? And so I think that process is actually a good thing in the end. Yeah. And I also think that if we're going to say that the scripture is God breathed, and you know, to the point that we were kind of trying to say earlier, is that like this is God's story. Like He's speaking to through through the scriptures. Yeah. Often they call it His word because He spoke it to us. Yeah. Right? And so I feel like that when we experience that, then that can our confusion with some things and the history and studying can kind of overcome those things. But I think overall, like what is the story pointing to? You know, and I feel like that stuff is unavoidable. Yeah.
Well, and so that's why I get more into like I can go to like and get a degree and study some of those harder, more specific things, and have a somewhat better understanding, but still leave with questions. But I also think again, what you were referring to there, like the root of it all and like what you're pointing to and like still being able to like accurately study a passage isn't necessarily limited to somebody who went to like a they got their masters or whatever
Sure.
in that vein, I guess. And so that's where I think I have a little bit of like I think people even independently can do a lot of that research. It would take more time. It does take
a lot more time.
more time and more intentionality because you have less resources readily available for you.
Yeah.
Like right there to say, hey, this
I've
is what
actually
we're reading.
recently been like, it would be cool to study Hebrew and like looked in to stuff and like looked at books in the library and like
Yeah.
it is a little harder to access.
Yeah.
And it's not as condensed to what you are wanting to know. But
Yeah.
anyway.
No, and that's the thing. And so part of me also is like I've wanted to know and study a little bit more too. But part of it is also like when I go and like I use like Net Bible. I don't know if you use that one.
Net Bible.
But that one it has like a passage, and I usually use the HCSB translation for that one because that one doesn't have all of the regular translations or all the it doesn't have NAV, doesn't have NASB. I don't think. I think it has ESV.
Gotta have the ESV.
But it has like a few other ones.
Extra spiritual version.
But it has the HCSB, and when I talked with Dave, and that was one thing he likes to use the NIV and or the HCSB mostly, and he does some ESV and stuff like that too. But
I thought they taught out of the ESV.
No,
Am I right about that?
I'm pretty sure he talked about a NIV, if I'm not mistaken. No. I think you're right because I think when I would read stuff in my own Bible when I had it, I would be different sometimes, and sometimes it was really different.
The most popular, I think, is the NIV,
or the New King James Version for sure. There's a lot, like even like people that are not Catholic that read the New King James Version for sure.
Sure.
So, but anyways, point being is when I go on that website, they have like the passage, and they also have either the Hebrew or the Greek right next to it, and you can scroll over on top of a word and it lines up with the same word in scripture that it's referencing, and it gives you the definition like the first and second and third definition of what that word means. And so it's a very easy resource. As you're looking through it, you can say, okay, here's what this word means, and sometimes you're kind of like, okay, how are they getting, how does that word line up with this, and like how does that actually, but obviously the sentence structure of the Hebrew, it's not as like Ace did this. It's like, did this Ace or whatever.
Yeah,
or like
and also multiple words are condensed with meaning.
Yeah.
So it's like a word in Hebrew has 4 different meanings. We have 4 words for those 4 different meanings. Hebrew has 1 word.
Yeah. Well, and that's why, and so in the bottom of it too, it also says the root. It says root and then colon, and then it does that. So I also learned all that from Dave too. So like that's where like he gets a lot of his like things right there. And also,
but this is it's a website you said?
Yeah, it's called Net Bible.
Net Bible. Yeah, I gotta look into that. That sounds cool.
It's really good.
Super useful.
It's crazy useful
because I'm not always trying to get into studying these languages, and if it's like thrown in for being able to read that, that's cool.
Yeah, and so that's kind of where when I'm looking, that was what I was gonna do when I was studying about love. I was about to like go in there and figure out that, but then obviously my computer. But so I wanted to kind of dig into those things, but it also has multiple commentaries from multiple people, and so you can look at different commentaries and some are.
Is this all free?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah. So that's what I'm saying though, because there's like
there's a lot of free resources.
There's a lot of free resources, and so that's where I'm like, just because I don't have a paid degree. Well, I mean, yeah, like I don't have a 4-year degree, or even 4 to 8 or 10 or however many years it takes to get a master's or a PhD.
Masters could be done in 2.
For
2 to 4.
Yeah, because it's a 4-year and then it's a 2-year.
Yeah. You could be done. Yeah, you could really cram.
Really
and do 2 years.
Yeah. But I know that however long it would take to get whatever degree I'm going for, to have that as the qualifier to say now I trust you that you can like study scripture, and I think there is some assurance in the fact that you've gone to an accredited school to be able to like say this school says that this person knows now how to study scripture, is I think kind of cheapening the fact that we also can empower and encourage people to like use those resources that are reliable to like look at scripture, and like whenever they're doing that to bring it to the church and then have that dialogue where we can say, hey, you're kind of reading into that wrong, and so then it allows it to be able to have that checks and balances.
Yeah.
And when you see somebody who's consistently actually accurately reading the word, then you can look back and say, well, I trust this person. Like, I can look at their track record and say, like, they're not a heretic that's spewing lies from the pulpit.
Right.
There's somebody who actually knows what they're doing. So I don't know. And I guess, again, I think it's some of my own, like, pridefulness coming through and just wanting to not have to do that, because I think that's been my journey up to this point. But also part of it is, like, the more I've been involved in, like, church leadership and seeing different churches, the more, like, it comes, like, almost a burden to me. I'm just, like, I think about, like, man, if I was like, a head pastor, like, I wouldn't do that, or I would do this. And I just think about how I would do things more differently, or things that I would take with me, and, like, oh man, I love that. Like, this is a great part of this church, or and so I guess I just have a lot of thoughts and feelings about it that kind of draw me to or away from it. But with that, I also am trying to wrestle through, like, if I'm going to be doing something, I have to kind of be figuring that out pretty soon. I mean, like, if I'm going to be going to school for the next 5 to 10 years, like, I'm not going to be done with school. If I do 10 years and start right now, I'm going to be 35. Starting a career.
35.
Yeah, and that's finishing school. I might not even get a job until a few years after that in that career. So then it's like, okay, that means, like, I'm not going to be almost 40 until I start a career.
Yeah.
Like, and that's a big deal whenever I might have a kid. Like, so, and that's why it's like there's a lot for me to kind of be thinking about. And, like, if I'm going to be a head pastor, then I have to kind of really nail that down. And if not, then I have to nail that down. And I also have to nail what that thing is if it's not in full-time ministry as a head pastor.
Yeah. Are you familiar with, like, the requirements for elders and deacons and stuff in Titus?
I mean, we could use a refresher course for sure. I could definitely use a refresher
I'm not, but I want to...
Let's go to Titus, bro.
Go to it, because...
Oh my goodness. Sorry, I just got a response from somebody about something.
Alright, so I'm gonna switch to the ESV. Extra spiritual.
Extra spiritual.
Alright, so Titus 1, starting in verse 5, it says this. This is why I left you in Crete, so that you might put what remained into order, and appoint elders in every town as I directed you. If anyone is above reproach, the husband of one wife, and his children are believers, and not open to the charge of debauchery or insubordination. For an overseer, and so that's a different word, or bishop, as God's steward, must be above reproach. He must not be arrogant or quick-tempered, or a drunkard, or violent, or greedy for gain, but hospitable, a lover of good, self-controlled, upright, holy, and disciplined. He must hold firm to the trustworthy word as taught, so that he may be able to give instruction in sound doctrine, and also to rebuke those who contradict it. And I think that's interesting, because from what I've been taught about this is, like, the word pastor never... Does it appear in the Bible?
Well, no, there is, yeah. Cause
it doesn't.
Well, no, I think this is teachers. Teachers is what it is, yeah.
Right. And so, like, this idea... So this is talking about church leadership.
Yeah.
And it really puts it more in the idea of elders, like these people that are leading the church. And so I think also culturally, the American system is that there is, like, one head pastor, and they do the majority of the preaching.
Yep.
And stuff like this, but I don't necessarily think that is the example of Scripture. Like, obviously, when you're looking at, Paul, he sends out these people to lead the churches. Like, when Paul's away and he's writing to the Romans, who's leading that church?
Yeah.
Is it, like, big name person who's the head pastor, or is it a group of people?
Well, I think he addresses it to the people, obviously. Like, he's speaking to the whole church itself, but he's not... I mean, let's look at Romans 1, because obviously he does... Paul, a servant of Christ, called to be an apostle and set apart for the gospel of God. The gospel he was promised beforehand... to all in Rome who are loved by God and called to be his holy people. Grace and peace to you. So he addresses it to like the church, the whole church, not specifically to one person.
Right.
Now,
and I know it's somewhere. I don't remember where this is, but I heard this recently. I think it was one of Paul's letters where he's writing and he's saying, you guys should know this stuff so that you're able to teach the people around you. That it's not actually just one person's job to teach. That each of us in faithful obedience to God is understanding more of who He is. We spend time in relationship with Him, which means that we're spending time in the Word.
Yeah.
We're being faithful. We're spending time in prayer. So it doesn't always mean that there's this one person. Like, a lot of these stuff is like super American ideas.
Yeah. No, very Western
For
structure
sure.
to the church.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
And even when I was at Biola, there was like one of the local churches that was really close to the campus. They didn't have a head pastor at the church. I mean, they were also blessed with like amazing teachers, which were actually a few of the professors.
Yeah.
At Biola.
Yeah.
But they never had like one main speaker. It was like a rotating, and they were elders of the church, and so it was like they had like a rotating like speakers throughout the elders at the church.
Yeah.
And like that's pretty cool.
Yeah, and I genuinely think that that's not unreasonable to expect. Like, and even if you have like somebody who is like the teacher of the church, but like I think part of that, again, it comes a lot to the elders' involvement, and that's why I was saying like if somebody didn't have a degree, they think they would still have to go through that process, whether they had a degree or not, because I think the degree doesn't qualify you. It's more the calling, and where do you stand in your own theology to lead people in general, to be somebody who is the go-to person whenever someone's like, well, like I have a question or I need discipling. There's the teacher's there. Bam. Like he would be the person that you would call on that. Now, is he going to teach every Sunday? Maybe not. Like but he might be the person who you kind of rely on as I guess maybe not necessarily the anchor, but I guess more of I don't know. What's the little? Is it the stern or whatever? I don't know what it's called. The little flap that steers a boat.
The rudder.
Yeah, I guess it could be like a rudder, but the anchor is Christ. Obviously, we're always rooted in Him, but it's like, well, I don't know, because He's kind of everything anyway. So it's a bad analogy. But point being is like you can still look to the pastor for help and all these other things, but you gotta have to also like think about. Like, it does come down to the leadership of the elders and the deacons and these other people that are already involved in a part of the church to really qualify somebody to be in that position in the first place.
Yeah.
So I guess, again, like you said, it's not necessarily always... I guess most of my life has not been the traditional route in general. Like, I'm married to somebody who's overseas, and we met at a camp, and we only saw each other for like 10% of our relationship before we got married. So like everything about my life is pretty untraditional. And like I just I don't know, I think I'm just kind of this weird, I think I'd like to be rebellious in that sort of way, and so it's hard to fight my own non-traditional way of going through life, as well as fighting my own rebellion, but also trying to find out where God's calling me. And then there's also people that always like tell me like, hey, like, it'd be really good if you could like go into ministry, like you should be the pastor at this church, or like, man, we want you to be, like when I was at Rolling Hills, like people telling me like, Gabe, you should be our high school pastor, like you should do that. And I was like, that's all fine and good, but like that's not what I'm doing right now. Like, it's not who I am right now. Like I eventually maybe, but like not right now. And that's kind of where like I fighting those thoughts and affirmations from other people while trying to weed through and figure out where God's calling me is kind of hard. So that's just kind of where I'm at, though. It's like I got a lot of irons in the fire, man. A lot of iron in the fire, boy. So yeah, it's just kind of this weird situation, I guess I'm in right now. That and until I figure it out, I'm kind of just really trying to be faithful where I'm at. That's all I really can do, like, I got my kids that the Lord's put in my hands, and I'm just going to lift them up and push them closer to the Lord. That's all I can do. And until I figure out what I'm doing after that, like, that's what I'm going to keep doing. So, sucks. I would love to know before and just start freaking going balls to the wall towards whatever I need to do, but
balls to the wall.
Dude.
All right. I got a question for you.
I have an answer.
Because being newly involved in ministry, is I think my perspective going in was different than I think it has actually worked out.
Yeah, in reality.
In terms of the balance of wanting to do. So what is I guess I'm asking what your perspective on like a healthy balance between creating like super fun environment in terms of like events and stuff like this, but then also having the discipleship aspect be. So like what do you think is like has been a successful balance for you? Because on my mind, I'm really trying to learn how to try to plan events that are effective. And in my mind, like I think about the things that I would have liked to do when I was in high school.
Yeah.
And I just generally am not really good at planning like super
Big
events with like different parts and stuff like that. I'm very simple, like keep it simple kind of person. And so
well, in terms of balance, it's really, I mean, I guess in my mind, when you're asking that, I think about the overall, I think, direction of the ministry and focus of the ministry is what comes to mind.
Yeah.
And for me, I think that I think the healthiest balance that I was able to have anywhere genuinely was when I was in Farmington in New Mexico, but that was mostly because I had a lot of volunteers. And there was a lot more people involved doing more with kids individually than I ever could by myself. Now, a huge part of what I was doing was like on my own time, like 2 or 3 hours on a Thursday or 2 or 3 hours on a Monday, and those were like regular weekly things that weren't as planned. They were just kind of more like we had Thursday night hangs, and that kind of turned into basically kids would come over, they would just hang out, and we just watch a game or play video games. But we'd also talk about life and just talk about like, and I'd pray with kids, and that was a big discipleship thing. But it was also just a very open door, like. You can bring yourself, you can bring your friends, there's food for you, but there's no expectations here tonight. It's just we're hanging out, you have a safe place to just be yourself, and you know, you have people here that love you and they're going to take care of you and take care of you spiritually and point you that direction, even if it's not forceful. And then Mondays was like Monday Madness, and that was just kind of out and crazy. There was no food, but it was just like, that was like, we just went out and played Ultimate Frisbee for 3 hours. And just building relationships with kids. But then we also had Sunday night real talk.
Even like during the school year and stuff?
Yeah, all year round.
Nice.
Well, because Monday Madness didn't... No, Monday, whenever it was... during the school year, we did it as long as it was light enough and warm enough out. But even then, when it was cold, we'd still...
You just go to a field near you?
Yeah, there was a big park that we went to. But point being is, like, there was regular meetings that we did where it was, like... kind of, it wasn't as like, hey, we're going to sit down and talk about the Bible. It was just hanging out, enjoying our time together, and just building relationships with kids. And that's the majority of what those events were for. Thursday was a little bit more intimate. Monday was much less intimate. It was because there was a lot more kids and there was a bigger thing happening. And it was more for athletic kids anyways. Like, we got really into it.
Yeah.
But it helped build some relationships with some kids.
Sure.
But Sundays is when we had Real Talk, which is kind of where I got the name for this podcast. And that was kind of where we had like a deeper Bible study and had kids over, similar to Thursdays, but there was no TV, there was no video games, no board games. Like, we were there to like study the Bible, and we came over and we got real. You know, we talked about stuff that was going on.
And that's outside of like a Sunday morning church.
No, yeah, that was this all stuff that happened either at my house or at a park.
Cool.
And granted, part of that's because we didn't have a building to go to, because we were working out of an old church that was like they were letting us use it only for youth group, and Sunday was at a high school. So it was all things away. But I think actually that worked out better, anyways.
Yeah.
But
did you have a good space too, like the house that you're staying in?
Yeah, I mean, so I had a condo, and it was when we had like kind of a bigger living room area, because it was like. It was like you'd walk in, and there was like, you take a left as you walk in. I had a really small kitchen on the right. I had one dining area with a little dining table.
Yeah.
Probably about like, I would say 12 by 10 area. So not big, but then because it was a 1.5 story, there was a tall open roof from that. So there was a open roof, and it was actually open from that roof all the way to the back wall.
Oh, dang, cool.
But there was a staircase that split it. So the dining room was separate, kind of, between
Nice.
the living room area, and so my TV, and then I had 3 couches that were there, and so.
But to say you had space.
Oh yeah, I had lots of space. Yeah, so that was kind of how we ran that area, and so it was good for Thursdays. Whenever we were hanging out, people could play board games, or they could. There was 2 bathrooms, and like they could grab food at the kitchen because it was right in the center of everything. You could play video games. You could play another board game on the other table. But yeah, so it was a decent space. And
Sure.
Max we ever had, which by the way was crazy when it got to that point. There was like 20 kids, like just jam packed in there, and there was like 8 of them sitting on one couch when there should be like 4, and there's like 3 people on that couch, and there's
Not
2 over
COVID
here.
approved anymore.
Oh no, not
RIP
even
to
close.
that.
Yeah. But that being said, all that happened, and but like the leaders also on their own would do discipleship stuff with the kids. Like they would reach out to them to their small groups, and so my small group leaders, they were the ones that would reach out, talk to kids, ask them how they're doing, and if there was something pretty serious or something that was bigger, they'd be like, "Hey Gabe, this is going on with one of my kids." And so I had, on top of that, I was also doing student leadership meetings with my kids throughout the week too.
Nice.
So that was more my direct discipleship, was the students within the youth group that were leaders amongst the students.
Yeah.
But all of the leaders themselves, they kind of more directly discipled the general population.
Right.
So I was kind of able to not necessarily have a direct role in each kid's life, but I was able to pour into the kids that were the biggest influences more directly and build them up in their relationship.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of discipleship going on with that, but there was also a ton of events that happened too, that brought in a ton of kids. But I partially was responsible for some of them and planning them, but partially wasn't. Most of them I didn't plan a lot of it. It was already kind of either pre-planned and I just had to figure out how to make it happen at our campus, or it was something that was very independent that I didn't tell the church about because I would have gotten in trouble. Because they're like, "Gabe, why are you doing that?" And I'm like, "Why are you spending money in that?" Or "Who's doing this?" I'm like, "I'm doing this," or "We're going here," and I'm spending my own money because I'm doing it. And they're like, "Why are you doing this?" I'm like, "Because it's a fun thing and we're going to do it and you don't want me to." So there's that kind of, and I think that environment, having the leaders there and involved discipling the students, was really the biggest thing that I think made that much different. And that was also a culture that was set up before I got there, so that's not anything to do with myself.
Right.
I walked into a really good ministry.
That's pretty awesome.
So I was very.
We have really
blessed with
good. Yeah, sorry, I was trying to interrupt you.
No, you're good. Go. Yeah, that was it.
We have some really, really cool leaders,
Mm-hmm.
and we probably we have a lot of leaders in our group that are super awesome.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just, for my own self, like thinking about, different ways to kind of get that on, because I think my boss's focus,
Mm-hmm.
he is all in on creating like those environments, those fun environments,
Mm-hmm.
and then having something good kind of come out of those, like
really
getting the people there
Mm-hmm.
so that they can be discipled,
Yeah.
and stuff like that. And I'm really the opposite. I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
the people that are here, I want to pour into
them.
Yeah.
Well, and I think it's different philosophies in ministry for sure. And I think your boss said he's like 43.
He's like 41.
41? Okay. So I also think that like 20 years ago, WWJD, that was like a huge thing, like what would Jesus do? Sorry. But like
I knew it.
Oh, okay. I was like, you just kind of looked at me like, yeah, okay.
No, I'm just the pure shock of you even bringing that up.
I know. It was just like, I think the culture, especially church culture with youth group, like it needed to either be like really cheesy or really kind of extreme and crazy. And like we gotta be fun and adventurous, like to even bring people in. And I think there was that heavy seeker mindset in a lot of churches, I think, back in the day. And I think it was fairly effective for like bigger churches like Saddleback and bigger churches like Sagebrush and bigger churches like Calvary at times as well.
Yeah, and he had worked at a really big church,
and so that's
before.
Yeah, and I think that's like, I'm familiar with that same kind of environment type of thing of like, we're just gonna host this huge over the top event, and we're gonna tell all the kids, invite everybody, and like, so normally we'd have anywhere from like let's say 90 to 120 kids, like in that range. Whenever when I was
That's
there,
a big group.
But then if we had a big event, the biggest we ever had was our Christmas party. The first year we got there, and we had like 200 kids. Like we could not count how many kids we had. Like it was insane. And like I had other events where there was 150 kids, and like and there was like another one that was like really big later on. But like that one, we could actually manage to count everybody, and I could see, and it was measurable a little bit more. With the Christmas party that first year, it was insane. It was like unbelievable. Like we had so many kids there, and it was like out of control. But it was really fun. Like it was really fun. So with that though, there was like very minimal benefit, I think, from that if we didn't already have a solid group there.
Right.
And when my first year there, it was a big shift between Dane and I, because Dane's a very different person than I am, and the kids that were there with him did have a hard time adjusting to me. But the things, there were a lot of kids that did stick around between that. I mean, when you have a group that's 120, 150
Right.
kids.
So describing Dane, let's just go out on a limb and assume that he's a little less enthusiastic.
Much less.
Personality-wise.
Much less. And also...
He's more of a mellow vibe.
Mellow vibe, and the kids used to tell me, at least the ones that said that they left, they would say that Dane went deeper in the scripture. I was like, okay, that's
cool.
fine.
That's legit.
I was like, all right, that's cool. But then I'd had students that were with him that had come back and seen the services in the middle of while I was doing things. They're like, dude, there's like literally nothing different. Like everything's the same. Like what you guys are doing, how you're teaching. Like there's no difference there. So she's like, I think the kids just don't like you. and she didn't necessarily say it like that, but she said like genuinely, I think it's just.
And I feel like that's natural, right? Like,
yeah,
you love someone, you love them to be the person that you're familiar with. You build a relationship with them, and then when there's someone different, it can feel weird.
Yeah, and the thing is also like, whenever Dane was there, he also had more volunteers working with him, and like he had more ins at the school. He also grew up in that area his entire life, and was like kind of a local celebrity, if you will, because he was like, he played college ball and went off and then came back and was like this awesome youth pastor for the church. But he also walked into a good group too. But I think he just had a lot more community connections to actually make it better than what it was.
For sure.
So that being said, like I walked into it and kind of had that difference of style, and it got weeded out after the first year, and then after that it kind of stabilized out and it grew again. And so I think the lowest it got was like 70 kids or so, but then it went from like 70 to 80 to 90, and then it hovered anywhere from 90 to 110 basically, or 120 on like 120 on a better night, and like around 100 on a very average night. But so a low night would be like 80, and you're like, whoa, where's all these kids? But that was just kind of the general thing of what we had. So that being said, I didn't necessarily always see a ton of the benefit in like these bigger events at times, besides just getting kids in the door. And there was a lot of gospel opportunities you could share with a lot of these new kids. But I think a lot of the growth and discipleship that happened was more so just the leaders than the kids that were already there.
Yeah.
And you can have fun events to make it fun for those kids and to give a fun environment. And I think when you have a really small group, you need some bigger, more eventful things to actually build some hype and allow them to be able to bring people in. But I think once you kind of have that critical mass, it's more just to kind of change things up and not necessarily actually a big growth opportunity that really happens specific with youth ministry. Because I think the community that you build and the way that you're intentionally spending your time with the kids, and you can be fun and crazy when you're hanging out with them, and that's all fine and good. But I think the community can be fun and crazy and have fun, but also be like kind of deep and heavy with each other whenever it comes down to it, or whenever you're doing teaching.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be deep and heavy. It could just be a little bit more real, a little bit more focused. And so I think it's I can't say it's necessarily one, because I think, again, you kind of need some of those bigger hype things in the beginning when it's a little bit smaller to try and build that funner environment, to let the kids see, hey, this is a good group. Like it helps them to believe in it and them to get behind it. And you're like, yeah, see, this is what I was talking about. This is what we could have had all along. And then once you have it, then it's kind of like, well, now that I have these kids, how are we pouring into them? Like, how are we actually building into their lives? And then even in that, like, that's whenever they can bring other people along with them. But it's like not until you actually pour into those kids and show them how you're going to do that that it even becomes beneficial at that point. Because you can get a bunch of kids, but if you're not building into them, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
So it's like, if I'm not helping these kids, then what am I doing? Like, I'm just hosting an event and being a fun, crazy guy that talks every now and then. And yeah, I can share the gospel, but if it's going in one ear and out the other, and really what those kids need is somebody to sit down and have a conversation with, that's a big difference. So I can't say it's one without the other. They both are necessary, and I think it just depends on where the ministry is at and kind of what, because if the students have a decent critical mass and they're ready to be discipled and be taken deeper, is the wife.
I'll call her soon.
No, you're good. But if we if you have that critical mass and the kids are ready to be taken deeper, then I would just make that your focus to take them deeper. Still have fun events every now and then, but it kind of just. I guess it's also the maturity of the group too, so it's not quite as simple as that,
Right.
Just
yeah,
you have members.
Yeah, and I get that too.
So I don't
talking
know
about this kind of stuff,
Yeah.
it helps me.
Yeah.
It helps me come to more realizations of different things like that. Basically, that's a growth area for me.
Dude, I mean, same.
It's like trying to recognize how to get all these kids involved with something super fun and create that energy. I feel like I can do that in certain contexts, but being creative with different things to do and things like that, that can be come more difficult for me.
Yeah, I honestly just think of random stuff half the time, and I'm like, yeah, we'll just do it. So the other day,
We'll just do it.
Yeah. So the other day we was talking about the armor of God and talking about the feet, and so the feet fitted with readiness. So what I did was, whenever the kids walked in the door, I said, everybody take your shoes off. You gotta take your shoes off. And so everyone put their shoes off and then put it on the cart right by the front door. So you got, 30 shoes or whatever just piled up on this cart. And then I was like, okay. And so, but what I did is I went and put dodgeballs in the sanctuary on the other side of the church. And so, but then I was like, I spread their shoes out all behind them, had them all set on the table. And I said, all right, so what's going to happen is when I say go, you're going to have to run and go get dodgeballs from the sanctuary and come back. And then you have to play a game of dodgeball after that. It's but you can't do that until you get your shoes on. Because you have to have your shoes before you can go. So then it relates back to the lesson of hey, you actually have to have the right footwear in order to actually go and do some stuff. And sometimes it takes longer for others. And sometimes you have easy, you just slip them on and you just go. And so but I literally thought of that. I was like, I don't have a game. I was like, something with feet. A dodgeball. Running to get a dodgeball. No shoes. Can't play shoes without dodgeball. Just take your shoes off. It literally was it was just random things that I just decided to kind of roll with. So
sure. Yeah.
Sometimes
the expectations I think are a little high on me for things like that.
I think, but because
the guy that I'm working with is awesome. He's been doing this for a long time. Okay. And I feel like that's the mode that he's been in for a lot of the time. And so things that I think are oh, that'd be cool, that'd be fun. He's like, dude, let's take it to the next level. And so that's interesting.
Yeah. I mean, to each their own. I also think your group is bigger than mine too, so I think that is harder when you have more kids to deal with. But it's simple to do it when you have a smaller group. I'm genuinely still building mine, but I when I got there, I was building it 100% from the ground up, and all the kids that I had were all old high school kids, and then they all left.
Yeah.
So
that's how it was for me in the beginning too.
Yeah.
Cool, man.
Dude,
I appreciate you, bro.
Dude, appreciate you too, man. Don't get all sentimental on the podcast, bro.
Not allowed.
No, dude, it's real talk, bro.
Real talk.
No, we get sentimental. No, I really do appreciate you, man. I know we have a long history together, just in general. And there's been times where we've been closer and farther, physically and just relationally, just in general. But definitely have always been a great influence for me, man. And I really do appreciate having you and Carly up here, man. Has been it's been nice, just knowing we even have some friends and you taking the initiative to start our men's group that we do now is really cool because that's something Rachel and I have been thirsty for, and Rachel more so she's still trying to find that. We just don't have that at our church, man. And my biggest thing right now, and I was talking to her about it before I dropped her off at work this morning, is I think big part of my role is going to be trying to just be a leader within the church and actually get things that we need going, because I just, I doubt Bruce is ever going to listen to this, so sorry, Bruce, but I don't mean to be critical, but it's like we just don't have that leadership in the church right now from anybody. Like nobody's really kind of taking charge of pushing things forward because things have always just happened.
Yeah.
But now I think we're at a point where we can't just let things happen because it's happening, but then it's disbanding. It's just kind of floating away. Like at first it was like this nice ship that was there, and it was like, people would fall off or kind of go away, but it was still fairly steady, and then kind of things changed. The youth pastor left and didn't have that for a while, and then COVID hit, and then it was like it just kind of slowly is, I think, leaking out on the sides a little bit. And I think my heart and my desire, and I really think what the Lord's called me to, at least to try and do, is to like just bring some stability to things right now. And I think Rach and I are both a part of doing that, but it's really hard, dude. It's like super hard because they're very like used to how things have been. And kind of entering into that is hard. And so that's why it's like our group that we do is like really awesome. And like the young adults group that happens like on tonight is really, really cool to have too. But by the way, what'd you think of the Super Bowl party?
Well, it was fun.
Yeah.
It was a good time.
Dude, wild.
We're definitely the biggest football fans in there.
Oh, yeah. Nobody else really cared. Honestly, nobody else really cared. And even then, I was trying to be cordial and like talk to Suzanne and talk to Mads, because they're as detached from that as you could possibly be, especially Madeline, sorry. Mads is like so detached from that. So I'm like, yeah, like because I don't want to be like the loud guy who's yelling and then like be like just ignoring all the other people in the room. So I'm like, okay, I'm gonna make an effort to not be a total douche. I'll be loud and obnoxious
when it needs to be.
Whenever they freaking don't. When they call a penalty, dude, that was not pass interference, dude. That was not pass interference, dude. And also that freaking man. It was. I wanted the.
Oh no! It was fun.
It was.
You have a good group.
Yeah.
Good group of people.
Yeah. So
that's awesome.
But anyways, man, we'll you want to wrap this bad boy up and talk to your wife?
Yes, I do.
Cool. All right, bro. Hey, dude, love you, man.
Love you too, man.
All right.
Thanks for having me on,
dude. Real talk, episode 2.
Yeah.
In the books.